Hey guys, Bruce Kittle here, coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia, where we are sitting getting ready for the Niners versus Falcons game. So hope you'll tune in, and we're rooting for the Niners to get another win, take a little bit further leap in the old standing in the West, and move toward the playoffs. But before we get to that, this episode this was an energy-filled, kind of a high-octane episode, so I hope you will enjoy it. We start off with talking to George from the Greenbrier, where the Niners stayed, which is what they do over their kind of 2 weeks when they do their 2-week East Coast swing. So we talked to George from his Greenbrier, from his green room. Honestly, a little creepy. Nothing against Greenbrier, but it looks a little bit dated. But anyway, George can talk about that. In that chat, we talk about the win over the Panthers, upcoming game versus the Falcons, kind of do's and don'ts and pros and cons. And then some of the ongoings in the NFL, including that every other team in the West lost last week. So that was kind of fun. And then we talk a little bit more on issues on synthetic turf fields and the implementation of new stuff on the concussion protocol. So, and then lastly, we talk a little bit about the power and technique behind mental resets after difficult and or emotional events. So that was a pretty good little chat for us. So hope you'll enjoy that. Then I was able to travel early this week and come out to Atlanta. Atlanta is one of the 8 cities in which MVP has a live huddle. And so came out on Wednesday and participated in the live huddle, and that was great. My thanks to all of the Atlanta MVP members. The whole crew there was really nice, warm welcome. And especially to assistant program manager, Brandy Powell. She led the workout and has been doing so for a long time. And then she helped facilitate the huddle. She was terrific. She is a swim instructor, trainer, and professional fighter with wisdom beyond her years, and mother of 3. So we have a special segment in here with Brandy included in this episode. So please look for that as well. Really interesting. We talk about living life through and deeply connected to your body from early on through her mom and father and other connections, and her uncle learned how to interact with her body and really kind of connected to that. So there's something about mind, body, and spirit there that's all connected. And then as she entered into the fight world, finding freedom and fighting. So some of you will definitely connect with that. Freedom to release all of their identities placed on her. She talks a little bit about what society does and places on women of color and women in particular, and what it meant to be able to set those things aside as she stepped into the ring, and then could find the freedom to discover and express her true, in our language, authentic self in the most kind of powerful and dynamic way. So really interesting conversation about all that. And then also how MVP gave her a tribe to share and grow with, to serve and help others with, all while she was trying to find balance in juggling her personal and professional life, including 3 young kids. So really interesting there, dynamic woman. So really hope you enjoy that part of the show as well. Our MVP veteran interview this week is with Atlanta program manager Mark Zinno. So Mark is a 28-year Army veteran and currently a colonel in the National Guard. He shares his insights on his military career, including 2 deployments, as well as his very active broadcasting, radio, and what has been at times a TV career. Mark also hosts and produces the Hazard Ground podcast. He's about to hit his 300th episode, in which he interviews veterans to share their stories and insights and lessons learned, highs and lows from military service, and issues those veterans have faced coming back and transitioning to civilian life. So a little bit about what we're doing. So Mark also shares about his own journey and kind of slowly discovering some of the mental health issues. He was eventually diagnosed with PTSD, and he kind of talks about that discovery really many years later. And so it's a very interesting conversation about that. He discusses and shares what it took for him to get help and the steps he's engaged in since, and the journey that he's on, and now what he's really, really working for and wants to help and empower everybody that's an MVP and or otherwise, is that we don't pass our PTSD onto our kids or influence others in that way. Also, Mark, great talk about leadership in this one, so I hope you enjoy that. Strong proponent of that, where he talks about self-sacrifice, empathy, and putting people first in that leadership role. So hope you'll tune in for that and enjoy that as well. So we got Brandy and we got Mark and we got George rolling. Again, real high energy episode, and I hope you enjoy it, and lots of lessons learned there. So take care, go Niners, and we will see you guys next week.
Hello.
All right. Very nice. Thank you for joining us. George is calling in from the Greenbrier in West Virginia, way out in the sticks somewhere. I don't know. I was going to try to go out and see you, but I can't do it because it takes me 7 hours to get there. So anyway.
Oh, that's news to me. I didn't know that you weren't not coming. Thanks.
We just figured it out today. We've been looking at plane flights, but Literally, it's Chicago. It's almost 8 hours. And then it's a private jet into the close one, and it's an hour and a half drive after that. So,
Huh. I love you too, Dad.
all right. Anyway, we can talk about that more. So, anyway, thanks for joining. You're in your beautiful room there with is that blue? Is it teal? What is that?
It's kind of an oceany vibe. Oh no, it's like blue drapes as wallpaper, and then I have um, floral curtains. I have a bright red floor, and I'm on a green couch. A lot of colors here. A lot of colors here at the Greenbrier. Actually, I had an accident last night at the Greenbrier. We got in late, and I was going to shut my curtains, and I guess I closed one a little bit too hard, and I ripped it out of the drywall, and I have drywall all over my floor now because I ripped the curtain off the wall. So very sorry, Mr. Greenbrier.
Have we reported that to the authorities? Or are you going to just let it go?
I'm probably going to let it go, but I just admitted to myself. So it is what it is. You guys can charge me for it later.
Okay. Well, cool. All right. Well, we're going to roll back to that. So let's just let's dive in here real quick, because I know you have limited time there with meetings and all that kind of stuff. A little bit of a rest day today, so that's good. But anyway, Niners update: win over the Panthers 37-15 out there in Charlotte, North Carolina. So super cool about that. I guess I was going to open. We were there, and I thought it was amazing the way the Niner fans traveled. So just a shout out to the Niner Nation, because there was a shit ton of red, and they were going at it. And I'm going to try to post with this a clip that we did. We were going down the ramp after the game, and the only people left in the stadium in the last 5-10 minutes were Niner fans. And going down the exit ramp on one of the side, the major ones, it was out of control. The "Let's Go Niners" chant, and it was awesome. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people chanting. So anyway, thank you, Niner Nation, for traveling, because it does make a difference. And there were times in the game where you could hear "Let's Go Defense" over the Carolina folks. So it was pretty cool. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've said it once, said it twice, said it 3 times. We love the Niners. The faithful is incredible. They show up and show out at every game. And stadiums that don't fill up with their own fans, we usually tend to fill them up ourselves. So that's just a huge shout out to them. Also, I just want to say, I think I had 3 different groups of fans sing me happy birthday yesterday at my game.
Right.
That's awesome. It put a huge smile on my face. You guys are incredible. That was the first for me. That's the most people have ever sing happy birthday to me in my life. So thank you guys. You guys rock. Right. I'll be sure to continue to schedule my birthday on the same day as games.
We'll try to talk to the NFL about that. So
yeah, we'll work on it.
Very, very, all right. So super cool on that stuff. So let's jump into the rest. All right. Defense again played really good, held them to 15 points, 6 sacks, and 64 yards rushing. So it's a tough day. Although Christian McCaffrey had a bit of a receiving day, had 1 TD. So I know we're friends with old Christian. So anyway, so he did pretty well. So your buddy Baker struggled a little bit. So that was pretty tough for him. He had a hard day. He showed up in post-game interviews wearing a boot, had an MRI today. So we don't know what's going on with that. I actually don't care. Totally flushed it. We won, we left, and we'll take the victory and move on. So pretty cool. But let's do a quick shout out. Emmanuel Mosley. Critical pick 6, 41-yard return for a touchdown. Really, and that was kind of a critical time. It was right after kind of missing that field goal. And, not that the game was in jeopardy, but anyway, so shout out to that. So that was pretty good. And the Niners still number 1 in scoring defense, number 1 in sacks in the league. So they're just doing a great job. So anything you want to add on the defense or shout out?
I thought our defense played really well. We watched the tape, and obviously, I think offense, defense, and special teams, we weren't clean all the way around, and but we played with we played like our hair was on fire, like we do every single game, and that's what allowed us to get the victory the way that we did. But it was fun. We have a lot to clean up on the tape. Like I said, offensive and special teams, and but our defense did play at a really high level. Especially, Nick Bosa was out for a majority of that game. I just want to say, our thoughts and prayers go out to Emmanuel Mosley. Ended up tearing his ACL with like 2.5 minutes left in the game. It just sucks. That's just football. Those injuries happen, and they happen to people, or and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's just, I know E-Man, he's a hell of a football player. He's a hell of a human being. He's got the right mindset. He's going to bounce back from it. He's going to continue to be a very, very talented corner and a very talented NFL football player. It just sucks. It just sucks.
It just sucks. Well, on the list, so you got Robbie Gould, you got Ward and Mosley, and then Nick, of course, kind of with the strained groin. That doesn't sound to be too serious, and then you're already down Eric and Kinlaw. So, what was a very stout position for us. Once you have that many injuries, it's really tough. You know what I mean? So, and plus,
it is.
Don't forget our boy Trent Williams. That's a dude not to have on the field for you. There's not very many silverback gorillas, and so when you don't have him, that's a big deal too.
Just one. There's just one silverback gorilla. Literally the most talented person on the football field at all times.
Yep.
So yeah, we're missing him, but I thought our offense did a really good job. We did a really good job in the run game. Shout out to Jeff Wilson, ran for 120. That was awesome. Tevin Coleman had 2 touchdowns. Super excited for him. Just an absolute animal.
And he just got signed. Just got elevated.
Yep. Back like he's back. Yeah, it was a cool stat I saw. That was his first touchdown since 2019 with the Niners.
Yeah, and was that also against the Panthers?
No, he had scored later in the 2019 season. Like he played the whole season for us, but it's just fun to have Tico back.
Yeah,
he had 4 touchdowns against them.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
In 2019.
Yep. So Wilson 120 with 1 TD, Coleman 67 yards, 2 TDs after being activated. 1 was rushing and 1 on a pass, a little screen pass over there. And he had a really beautiful 30-yard reception kind of down the sideline. So really kind of a critical first down. That was one thing too. I thought on third downs, you guys performed really well. And a lot of those third downs, they weren't 3rd and 3. We kind of did some stuff, got ourselves into some situations. You had a lot of 3rd and 7s to 12s.
And that's exactly where the Panthers throughout the season have been at their best, because they do a lot of blitz zero. They do a lot of crazy stuff on defense and try to get the offense to make a mistake. And we took advantage of that. And it was awesome to see. We had guys step up, make plays on third down. Juwan Jennings played a hell of a game. He had 2 huge catches on third downs for us and carried guys down the field. So that's really fun to see. It's awesome when everyone that touches the football just kind of bounces off of people and has the mindset that they can score.
Yeah, no doubt. Ayuk, he was 3 of 4 for 58 yards. You were 5 of 6 for 47 yards, and Jennings only 2 of 7. That's what they had in the stat. That seems wrong, but I don't know. But another 45 yards. But he made some big plays. So, and in the end, they gave up 2 sacks. But given putting the offensive line together and the injuries that they faced there, I really thought that was a hell of a job. If you'd have told me we got out of there with 2 sacks, so, and I thought Jimmy looked really comfortable. 253 yards passing. Did a really nice job, and so all those things pulled together really well. Looked much more comfortable than he did last week. So,
2 weeks ago. But yeah, if you want to see a hell of a throw, check out the pass he threw to Tevin Coleman on the sideline. He got lit up by 2 guys at the exact same time that he threw that ball, and it was a dime piece. So, It's awesome when you have a guy that can stand in there and know he's going to just take a shot and still deliver a perfect ball.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, hey, Tevin still got to go up and get it, and that's awesome. We're happy that he's back.
Both, on the toss and the reception, it was really just beautiful. So anyway, shout out to Jimmy too, just because the whole situation, all that kind of stuff, and fitting in and just putting all that stuff behind him and showing up every day and being the professional that he is. So super cool that way. So, all right, really good. We talked about injuries a little bit. I just want to circle back. You, in your post-game interview, said a few things about field turf. And I don't know if you want to follow up on that, but basically you pushed again for grass fields. And if we're not going to have grass fields, we need a uniform field turf or whatever the synthetic turf is across the NFL. So it is the same and has certain standards and can be measured, and then players know what they're going to get every week. So why was that an issue for you? Did you feel like the Carolina turf was a little bit jitty, or what was going on?
Well, I just got asked by the reporters what my thoughts were, because it seems like every year that we're at the Greenbrier in West Virginia game, but we always play on a turf field before we come here. We played on MetLife in 2020, and we had 2 ACLs, an ankle, and an MCL. 2021, we lost Jason Verrett in the first drive, it felt like, to an ACL. I think we lost another guy that game, and then we lose Emmanuel Mosley.
Yep.
And then you just listed off more guys. It's just so it's just this turf field, and I'm not 100% against turf fields, and I understand that there's certain situations where a turf field is appropriate. But really, it's just, I mean, I said it last night, and I just feel like I don't get why every stadium, if you're going to have turf, why they all can't be the same turf or at least similar to some standpoint. And I mean, because I got posts and there are a bunch of comments, people coming to me saying like, well, it's hard to grow grass in certain places. They grow grass in Lambeau. I mean, if you can grow grass in Lambeau, then people are like, oh, you can't grow grass inside. Arizona has grass. Oakland, sorry. The Las Vegas Raiders have grass. If you really want to do it, you can have grass field, or you can just get a really nice turf, or replace your turf once in a while. I mean, there's a ton of stadiums out there that still have the same turf from like 8 to 10 years ago. It's like your team's worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars.
Right.
And spending $1 to $2 million a year on taking care of a grass field seems like a benefit for your players. And I'm like, and I said it last night too, like I'm thankful that Jed York, he takes his money and he puts it into our players, whether it's, their body maintenance stuff, the way we travel, the way that we stay, and he takes care of us like that. But he also, we have wonderful fields. We really do. We have great practice fields. And we have a great stadium field, and it's always in tip top shape. I know like our groundskeepers, they have a lot of pride in their field, and like, that's what you want. And so every time you step on that field, you're not scared or nervous. Like, oh, I'm on turf again today. Like, hopefully my cleat doesn't stick. And that's a thought that you have sometimes you play on turf. And so I just think that they should always be similar, at least, and stop having all these different turfs that are all from different years and you just patch them up. Like, I can't believe that teams actually throw a patch, to fix a turf. Like, let's just get a new turf. It's okay.
Well, and I think the technology around synthetic turfs has really improved. It's changed a lot over even just the last 3 to 5 years. And I think the NFL, they need to mandate standards for the synthetic turf if it's going to be synthetic, and they need to, make sure that all those standards are being met and that everybody's got newer turf, because it really makes a difference. So, anyway.
Again, like if you're, I don't know how teams still have turf that's from like 5+ years ago. Most of the guys that played in the league 5 years ago aren't in the league anymore. It's like 10% of the league probably from 5 years ago, 25% maybe. I don't know. But it's like you have all these new people and you keep having all these incredibly gruesome and season-ending injuries. And I'm going to assume that the percentages happens more often on turf. And so,
well, I should have looked it up beforehand because we were going to talk about this, but there is a research study about players that play in a turf stadium as their home stadium versus players that have grass, and the longevity for the players on grass. There's a percentage that they outlive and outperform and stay healthier than players on synthetic turf fields. So,
100%.
Anyway, so I mean, it's pretty clear about all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it is. I mean, and for reference, like I played, I think 65 snaps yesterday on Carolina's turf, and it's a new turf too. I think they replaced it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a newer turf, and it was definitely not the worst turf I've played on. Like I've played on much worse in NFL stadiums. But it still was a very different turf. Like it's not just the black beads; it had a bunch of sand mixed into it too. But like I'm more sore today now than I have been the entire season. Right. My ankles, my knees, my hips, elbows, everything. You're way more sore after that game, and all your muscles are. It just doesn't give like grass. It's not as forgiving as grass. So that's my spiel on that. If you guys want to keep asking about turf, I'll keep diving into it, baby.
Yeah. Well, it's all good. And for those teams that say they can't, I mean, the Cardinals, their turf, it's on rollers and they pull it out and it gets sun and then they push it back in. They have like 3 different versions and they keep growing them. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. So in Charlottesville, I mean, it ain't that bad. They said they went that way because they also have a professional soccer team there.
Okay. Well, again.
Yeah, I'm with you. What I'm saying? Okay, let's go. All right, all good. All right, now we're jumping. All right, any other core lessons from the Panthers game? Any big observations on your end that just so we don't.
Big observations. We have a lot of playmakers on this team at every single position. Guys that can make plays, guys that want to make plays, guys that want the ball in their hands, guys on defense that get the ball into their hands. So we just have to keep chugging along. We have to keep continuing to get better and keep getting into a groove, because I think our offense is taking steps forward. Our defense is continuing to play at a high level, and our special teams is still playing well. So just continue to take a step forward each and every single day. And then you'll get where you want to be.
Get a little better. Yeah. And we did have 153 yards rushing, which that was a bump, and that was really good. So that did feel, and I mean, I was seeing at least a significant amount of gap scheme, And so that seemed to be pretty productive against the Panther defense.
That was really fun.
That was really fun. Yeah, a lot of down blocks
fun.
up on the linebackers and chipping guys, and the pulling stuff really worked. So anyway, guys did a great job. Okay, so NFL review, NFC West. So let's just review. Niners are now at 3-2. Only West team without a loss in the division. Everybody else in the West lost. Sorry, fellas. Everybody's at 2-3 now. Cards lost to the Eagles 17-20. Rams lost to the Cowboys 10-22. Seattle lost to the Saints 32-39. Sorry, we're not feeling bad. Glad to be sitting there. So that's really good.
No, we're not. But I do want to say, Geno Smith, that guy's, I watched some of that game.
Yeah.
And he is slinging the ball. He had a roll out to the left. I just saw this on Instagram. And he's rolling out to his left. He's right in a quarterback. And on the run, without setting his feet, just launches like a 25 to 30-yard dime piece over two Saints players and drops it into a bucket to Noah Fant on the sideline as he's running out of bounds. There's not a lot of people in the NFL that can make that throw on the run. Right. And so I'm happy for Geno that he's getting a shot to go out there and show off his skills, because people definitely wrote him off. And I'm just excited for him that he's playing at a high level. Going back, I haven't watched the Rams game yet versus the Cowboys. I know they're struggling in the fourth quarter a little bit, but Cardinals game ended on some crazy play. Kyler Murray slides. They don't give him the first down, so he has to clock it. And then they kick a 40-yard field goal, and then they miss the field goal. That's just heartbreaker. That's a tough one to lose on, because at least, you feel like you do enough as an offense. You feel like you've done enough, and then you don't even get a shot to go back into overtime. So, and then look, I'm not going to put all the blame on the kicker either. Like there's probably 50 plays in that game that could have set it in a different direction. But just because it's the last play of the game, that's all people ever talk about. But I know that one has to sting a little bit. But I can't wait to watch that whole game.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to that. Okay. Others, I just wrote down a couple potential surprises. Giants now 4-1 over the Packers, 27-22 in London. Saquon went off, man. My man's
Saquon.
What'd I say?
You said Saquon.
Saquon. My apologies. Okay, thank you. Anyway, all those cues, stuff. All right. So anyway, Giants 4-1. That's pretty cool. Bills also 4-1. Romped the Steelers 38 to whatever it was.
3.
Who are now 1-4. So that's pretty ugly for the Steelers. That ship is a little teetering right there. So that's unusual for them. And then between the new upstarts, the Jets now 3-2 beat the Finns. I thought Dolphins would get this one. They are now 3-2. They weren't 3-1.
Well, the Dolphins are down Tua, and then Bridgewater got taken out. So they are down to their third string quarterback in the first quarter. And I don't care who you are, that's tough, especially if you haven't been in the system for a long time. That's a toughie.
Yep. Super tough. Yeah, we saw your boy Purdy before the game at the hotel before the game at the Panthers. I go, dude, your life's changed quite a bit, hasn't it, the last 2 weeks? He goes, oh my gosh. I go, you ready? He goes, I'm trying to be, man, but man, it's different. So our friend the Cyclone, anyway. So he's a great kid.
Hey, I'll give Purdy a shout out too. I've got nothing but compliments from him. I didn't get to play with him in the preseason much. I got a couple times in a huddle with him, but everybody says he's got that dog in him. And when you got that dog in you, and guys feel it, especially when you're a rookie, there's something you can do with that. And you got that dog.
There's no doubt. And he showed that when he was at Iowa State. The games he played and the stuff he did there, he is a dog. He's a player. So we're glad to have him on the Niners. And he's got a little swag to him. So, yeah. Anyway, so we were chatting.
He talks back once in a while. I love it.
Yeah, no, he's good. Yeah, Mom was
to
him,
me. To me, he talks back.
Oh, good. Well, you're a Hawkeye. You guys got to fight. So that's good.
Just once in
Mom
a while.
was giving him a hard time for not being an Iowa native and then going to Iowa State. But anyway, his choices were A&M or Iowa State. And he just went because of Campbell. He just said it was night and day.
I've heard nothing but great things.
Yep. So hell of a coach. So, okay. And then I just want to touch base. We didn't get to this last week, but the whole Tua concussion thing and the protocol. So now the NFL protocol has changed. And I'm wondering how much information you guys have gotten on that as far as the protocols changing and what they're doing with that. Nothing. Okay. I was trying to look it up, but I couldn't find any real details on it. So the NFLPA and the NFL management have agreed to changes in the protocols. I don't know. Apparently they've kind of been implemented because they're making it seem like the refs are calling things differently. Okay, got it. All right, let's run off on that. If you don't want to say anything, I'll do this really quick. College review: Iowa 3-3 lost to Illinois. Now, all right, who are 9-6, And they also lost last week to Michigan. We didn't get a call in last week, so I was a little bit down.
How about the Brett was it Belima?
Belima.
Yeah, how about his revenge tour? He's got the Tiger Hawk logos tatted on his calf, I think, calf or back. And then he coached at Wisconsin for a long time. Goes into Wisconsin, gets the dub. Following week, beats the Hawks.
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm happy for him because those have to be two pretty emotional wins.
Well, there's no doubt. And then his last two jobs, didn't go very well. So, but he's got Illinois going well, and he got the Wisconsin coach fired. So, that's tough. But anyway, he's making a run for it. They're playing they're stout defense, and they run the ball and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then just for our buddy Will, I'm going to just go for it because we told him we're going to ride along. Nebraska now 3-3, 2 Big Ten wins back-to-back, first time in like 6 years. They defeated Rutgers on the road. So Rutgers 3-3, 14-13. So that was good. And their next week they're at Purdue, who are 4-2. So Will, we just want you to know, man, we were riding with you. You're in our heart. We're still not a Nebraska fan, but you are one of our guys. So we're going to chip in for you. So, okay. All right. Niners at Falcons, quick review. So Falcons come in at 2-3. Niners are 6.5 favorites. We'll be in Atlanta, Georgia. And so let's see. They lost to Saints, Rams, and Tampa. They got wins over Seattle and Cleveland. Defense is ranked 26 in points per game, 25th in sacks at 8, and 14th in INTs at 4. So that's kind of where they're at. Offense is ranked in the top 10 in a couple categories. They can sling the ball around a little bit. And talk about quarterbacks coming back. You know who their QB is?
Mariota.
Yeah, and so because he's kind of in that same thing with Gino. Those guys were kind of contemporaries and all that kind of stuff. Yep, and so he's back, and he's I think playing pretty well as far as that. Primary playmakers: wide receiver Cordell Patterson and tight end Kyle Pitts. So we know Kyle from our tight end youth stuff and that. So we'll kind of see how that all goes. So anything, I know it's really new in the week for you. You guys are just kind of starting to unpack Falcons. We know every game in the NFL is going to be really tough, and we got to.
This is what I got for you. I know this. Yep. I know Atlanta has a very, very good special teams unit. Very good. They fly around and they have fun out there. And they're very well disciplined. So special teams will be a huge point of emphasis this week for us. I know that. Just sitting in the special teams meeting. They're already talking about that. I do also know that they had opportunities to win both in Tampa last week. They had a couple calls did not go their way. They had a chance to beat Tom Brady in Tampa. They had I want to say a 21-point lead on the Saints in week 1, and they let that one get away from them. This is a talented football team. They've got some purpose behind them, and they're just figuring out how to win. They've just lost a couple of weird ones, and so this is a very talented football team. And it's not gonna. I don't foresee it being like Carolina. I think it's going to be much closer than that. Much more like most of our other games. So it's going to come down to us staying on the field, third down, no turnovers, and score some touchdowns.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, let's close out then, because I know you got to get going. I was just going to say happy birthday. You had your birthday on a Sunday yesterday, so that's super cool. 29 years old. Let's see. And I sent you some pictures of Deanie, so you're pretty happy about that. And we have Halloween coming up, which is one of your favorites, but we'll save that because that's a little bit another week or so out. So we'll kind of deal with that. So that's all good. And let's see, we're closing. So let me do this. I had a little mental prep thing, but you don't have time for it. I'll save that for next week. So that's okay. Do you have a mindful awareness moment from this week where you were paying attention and kind of caught yourself thinking or feeling anything? Or
sure.
Something like that. Just, one of your practices that helps you keep your feet grounded and centered.
On Sunday, I had a turnover. I fumbled a football. And while that's just an awful feeling of both you feel like you're letting the team down and then you're also not performing at the level that you need to be playing at, you can let that go one of two ways. You can either spiral downward and let it affect you for the rest of the game, or you can take a deep breath and flush it and move on. And while you got to, acknowledge it and you got to, hey, I got to be better than that. If you let something like that just fester in the back of your head, you're definitely not going to be able to play an NFL football game, especially when they're still counting on you to make plays. And so I took a moment to myself on the sideline, took a deep breath, and I was ready to roll. And I went out there and I played a hell of a game the rest of the game. And while I never want to fumble it, sometimes mistakes bring clarity to you, and they bring a reignition. They reignite things in you that you need to focus on. So I'm not thankful for fumbling the ball,
Good.
but definitely will have more emphasis on it. Which I always feel like I do, but more emphasis I will try, I guess, this week in practice. But just when something bad happens, just don't let it spiral. Don't let it snowball. I've talked a lot before about I had a reset button in college. I still have a reset button now, whether it's my tattoos or whatever. But just being able to take a moment and say, okay, that happened. How am I going to respond? Am I going to ball out because I'm an absolute savage, or am I going to let this break me? And I refuse to let that break me. And I'm going to go out there. I'm going to continue to make plays at a high level because I'm me.
Yeah. Well, and I just want you to know I was channeling reset all the way because I knew that's what you would be doing. So we were helping up top. So doing the very best we can from that. And you're right that life happens for us, not to us. And so it's our responsibility to kind of make those things, and learn from them and do better. So, all right, all good. Did you have any Hidden Pearl updates? Anybody that you've seen out there being charitable, kind, or nice to other people that you want to just a quick shout out? Because we're looking for Hidden Pearls about people and organizations doing good stuff.
A Hidden Pearl. Oh, my wonderful acupuncturist, Jenny. She works out of Oakland. That's where her office is. She came to my house to do some work on me this past week, and she got me a birthday gift. And she did not have to give me a birthday gift. She got me a Lego, and I was really excited about that because I love Legos.
Yep.
And another thing I really love about Jenny is she lives much farther north of the bay, and she took an hour plus out of her day to drive down and see me just because I was dealing with some stuff, and she fixed me right up and made me feel a lot better and more confident playing the game. And it's a lot easier to play football when you're 100% confident in your health, which is hard to do week to week, especially as the season goes on. But she gets me as close back to 99, 100% as I could possibly be in season. And there's plenty of other people that work on me that I love and adore. But I just really appreciate the fact that she drives an hour and a half to my house, works on me for about an hour and a half, and then drives an hour home. And she just takes her time out of her day to do that. And I know that's not charity work, and I do pay her for it, but she could tell me no. And but she doesn't. She shows up, she works, and she has great energy. So thank you, Jenny.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. And I'm just going to shout out a story that Thaddeus Longmire from Northwest Junior High out of Iowa City. We were linked up to that. And from the KCRG folks, they're in Iowa City, one of the local stations. He is a young man, plays junior high football. He plays tight end, but he was born without arms. So if you think that whatever you got going on is tough, anyway, they sent us some clips. And I've been chatting with his mom, so we're going to see if we can't get him out to a Niner game yet this year. And we'd love to meet Thaddeus, but shout out for courage and determination and all those kind of things. So, all right, Georgie, any last words? We appreciate your time. Enjoy the Greenbrier. You guys now are 8-1 on East Coast swings under the Shanahan era, staying at the Greenbrier. So the rooms must have some kind of magic to them because you guys have really overall played really well.
I think my ceiling was bleeding last night.
Like in a haunted kind of bleeding?
Yeah, I sleep with a light on here. It also doesn't help that it's spooky season. Ooh.
Yeah, it is. Halloween's coming up, man. And what do we know what your go-to costume is going to be? We'll talk more about this next week. Okay, we'll save it. Okay, Georgie, we love you very much, man. Thank you for taking time. We're excited. I'll be in Atlanta on Wednesday. I am filming this week at the Atlanta MVP Huddle live. So we're going to do that. And then we're doing some civil rights movement stuff as well. So we're looking forward to that. So you take care. Tell all the folks hi out there for me. I know KS wants to call if he's got any strategic issues he wants to go over with me. Let me know, and I'll be glad to set up a call with him.
He said you didn't answer last week. That's why he didn't call.
Damn.
You missed it.
Missed the KS call. All right, brother. Love you so much. All right. See you soon.
Love you, Pops.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Okay. All right. So Georgie's off, and I just want to take a minute. I kind of talked about some of those things, but I do want to just affirm again. I read an article this last week, and this is just on the mental health side of things. There's so much of that is really pressing around, and I'm just seeing it more and more clearly all the time. And it's one of those things, I guess, once you become aware of it and you start thinking about it, you see it more regularly. And so whether it's injustice, unfairness, unkindness, whatever that kind of stuff is. But I want to give a shout out to the Baltimore, geez, that's how old I am, Indianapolis Colts. So they have a mental health program initiative they're calling Kicking the Stigma. And one of their t-shirts says kicking the stigma, and the other one is it's okay not to be okay. And you folks who are part of Emerging Vets and Players MVP know that that's kind of one of our mottos as well, is that it's okay to not be okay, or just at least to acknowledge it. So I just want to again just shout out that it's life's hard. There's a lot going on with it. And when you're in that struggle, just remember that you're not alone. There is help out there, whether it's counseling, therapy, a friend and or family. And a lot of times friends and family aren't a good choice. So anyway, we'd love to help hook up with whatever is going on. And if we can help in some way, please do. But just remember, you're not alone. And these things do pass. And while it feels really permanent sometimes, and like you can't see the end of that tunnel, there are options available for you. So anyway, our love and support goes out to everybody out there. And also shout out a lot of just, I don't know why, but I've got kind of a real series of connections and friends dealing with particularly breast cancer. And I want to just shout out to the families and individuals who are facing that, because it is a trauma and it is difficult and it is a strain and it's really hard. So anyway, our love and support goes out to everybody dealing with physical limitations and or struggles that way. So, all right, we will more later. And again, next week we're in Atlanta and we're doing MVP Live Huddle on Wednesday. And we have a great with their program coordinator, Mark Zinno, if I'm saying his name right. So appreciate it very much, and take care. Have a super great week, and thanks for listening. All right, Bruce Kittle here with Hidden Pearls Podcast. I'm sitting with Mark Zinno, and Mark is the Atlanta MVP program manager, if I have that correctly. And I had the great fortune of going to the Wednesday Night Live Huddle. I didn't get to see Mark, though, because I know he had some family commitments. But anyway, Brandy was a great host, as was the rest of the crew there. So we got some pictures of that. And we're going to do a short take with Brandy yet. So that'll be part of this show as well. So we're really excited about that. So, Mark, thank you. I know you're super busy, and I appreciate you taking time today. So I'm just going to make it real quick. I spent the day down in the kind of civil rights section of Atlanta. And I don't know, it's just kind of a tangent for sure, but, I got the regular gloss overview when I went to school. I'm 63, so high school in the 70s and all that shit, and everything was still pretty vibrant. It was just kind of in that aftermath. Mm-hmm. And then I went to seminary after law school, and the seminary I went to was in Chicago Theological. So hats off to the guys there and ladies. Anyway, but hardcore social justice group and really strong commitment and affiliation with Dr. King during the days. Anyway, so really got in the 2 years for that master's program, got really indoctrinated with all that, just kind of nonstop. So this is the first time I've been able to get back to Atlanta and kind of walk around like that. And so honestly, it was really a weird day in a way, you know what I mean? Because it carries a lot of emotion and you look back at all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, and you've been around Atlanta for a bit anyway. So I think since 2014. So maybe we'll touch back on that, but that's kind of, I don't know, the whole thing kind of went.
I have to tell you, sorry to interrupt, but like you moved to Atlanta, and I think anybody who is a empathetic human being, it forces you to sort of dive into the civil rights culture of the city of Atlanta, right? Just because you're here and it's so a big part of it, and ever since I moved here, one of the first things I did in diving in was read Letter from a Birmingham Jail that Martin Luther King wrote. And I still carry it in my briefcase to this day. It is one of the best pieces of journalism that I've ever read, one of the best pieces of written literature you could ever read. It is well ahead of its time. And part of what prompted me to do it was, obviously, and this ties it all back to the sports stuff. That's a big part of my life. But, the Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling, and I'm sitting here going, this guy wrote this like 50 years ago, and all of it is resonating out loud today. And that is something that really truly stayed with me. And I carry that letter around in my briefcase or my bag, my computer bag. I don't carry a briefcase that sounds very businesslike, and I'm not businesslike at all. But I carry it with me just because it's every now and then I'll pull it out and reread it, because it's just a constant reminder, of struggle, right? And empathy and how to meet somebody in the middle and where there is common ground. And, we've ceded the middle ground in America today. Obviously it's a bigger, longer form discussion, but we need to get the middle ground back. It's okay to stand in the middle ground. It doesn't have to be, if you're not with me, you're against me sort of mentality that we've sort of devolved into in America today. And even within that, it's like, even within decides if you're not with me or against him. We get these like little, like we're headed to the damn Hunger Games is what it's eventually turning into.
Yeah. Well, no doubt. And, and as you think about Dr. King, I think for a long time worked really hard to not polarize people. That, we were talking about there are social justice issues. There's been stuff that's been going on, but trying not to make people enemies of themselves, but working toward unification. But obviously, there's no peace without justice. And so he kind of had that standard bearer. And of course, a lot of people don't want to give up certain things peaceably. So it does get to be a push. But anyway, well, good. Yeah. The Birmingham jail letter is certainly well reading if anybody's not read that, and or some of other Dr. King stuff.
Like that's what you should be quoting on Martin Luther King Day. Everyone grabs the all fluffy feely ones. Like, get the real shit. Like, get to the meat of what the man was about, because that's what he was genuinely about. Nobody ever quotes letters from a Birmingham jail. They always quote the other stuff.
That's a little too edgy.
Yeah,
a little bit too much.
There is that,
yeah. So, okay. Well, anyway, so there's our little sidetrack on that, and we'll just kind of continue to carry that a little bit. So, where I want to get to is, so you got into MVP when the Atlanta, and so I'm going to give a quick little summary of your bio, just really short, so people kind of know, and then we'll have some of that stuff in the notes. But anyway, currently you're still in National Guard, is that right?
Yep, 23 years. Hold the rank of colonel. Okay. Yeah, just
okay.
Hanging on until as long as they'll let me stay, I'll hang out.
All right, Army Colonel, 23 years. You've done both active and National Guard, a couple combat deployments to Iraq, so we can kind of work back to that. And then you got involved in MVP a while back when they first started the program, and then program manager here, and then your side career or the other career, TV, radio, talk show, and podcast host. So doing a lot of stuff and kind of carrying that banner and doing those things. So kind of between sports and military, that's the kind of two themes that I certainly took from everything that I was able to kind of pull up with on that. So I guess, what I really wanted to get to is, your journey into broadcasting and that. And so, and I know you went to college, and I got to ask you, I guess. So, because it talks about baseball and football, and then growing up in Long Island, and then you went to Loyola in Maryland and got into varsity co-ed cheerleading. So it's in your bio, so I know you must get to talk about it. And then later, when you got moved to Baltimore after your stint in Fort Hood, you come back to Baltimore and you eventually get on the Ravens co-ed professional cheerleading team. So let's just start with cheerleading, because it's just like, that's a whole nother dynamic, which is kind of a little bit out of the box. So because the only male cheerleader I got, and this is not like boxing, but what's that one? Not All in the Family, but that, and he's a cheerleader. Oh, geez, I'm blanking now. The wife's a blonde, and he's there. They've been on for years and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, there's only one or two kind of role models where they've adult, kind of male cheerleaders. So tell us about cheerleading and how that got you pulled in, and what was the spark there?
It wasn't anything like I'd ever planned it. Like, I wanted to be shortstop of the Yankees, right? Like, that's what I wanted to be growing up. Like, that was supposed to be my deal. Derek Jeter seemed to have gotten away. It worked out well for him and the Yankees, not so much for me. But as a Yankee fan, I was very happy that it went down that road. But, so I never ever had really any intention of doing it. And when I got to college, like, I had been friends with a lot of cheerleaders in high school, and the girls had asked me if I wanted to do it in between my football and baseball seasons. And I'm like, I don't know. They knew I was like, the one guy who wouldn't care about all the insults that come. So, it doesn't bother me. But anyway, they never did it. And so when I went to college at freshman orientation, they had like these cheerleaders do a demonstration there. And one of the guys who was on the orientation staff was also a cheerleader. And I asked him, I said, well, what's it all about? What do you guys do? And he said, well, you should come out to a practice. I'm like, nah, don't worry about it. And then while I was doing ROTC, I had found out that some of the guys in ROTC were also on the cheerleading team. And then it all culminated when a girl on my floor who, take 18-year-old Mark, who's from Long Island, who wanted to marry a Jersey girl with a thick Italian accent for his whole life, gets a knock on his door, and it's one of the girls who's like, hi, I'm Kristen. I'm on the cheerleading team. Do you want to come to practice with me? And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, whatever. And I walked in, and like immediately 20 girls thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And like any 18-year-old, male at that point in time, I was hooked. So, but it was great because I had all the ROTC guys there, and it was easy to get along, and you had a real tight group of guys who were there. So it made it easy. It made it fun. And it was athletically a challenge like I had never had before. Again, I played every sport there was growing up. I was on skates at 3 years old. I was playing hockey by the time I was 4. football, baseball. I even played volleyball. I did track one year. I mean, like I played every sport there was just because I was athletic. And so this was like a whole different level of athletic challenge that I had never seen before. And so it sort of just ignited this like, hey, and every time, gymnasts would know this. Every time you learn a new trick, every time you learn a new stunt, it's like, okay, well, how do I top that? How do I get to the next level? There was always a next level that I was striving to. And that was such a motivation. You got this stunt. Okay, perfect it. Get the next one. You got this stunt. Okay, perfect. Just keep going up, 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 up. And there was never any limit to what you could learn and how you could master this craft. And that was always something that drove me with inside cheerleading that I found interesting. I tell people I don't call it a sport because it doesn't meet my criteria for a sport, but it definitely is athletic, right? It'll physically challenge you, to say the least. And I made friendships for life, both in college and on the Ravens. Friends for life that I just have known. It's such a close knit. Anytime you're on a cheer team, I mean, look, in reality, and this will transcend into other things. There are people who are trusting you with their physical lives. You're throwing girls 20 feet in the air. They are trusting you to put yourself between them and the ground if anything goes wrong. It's your job to take the quote unquote, bullet, if you will, if something goes wrong. And, I took a lot of pride in that. Nobody ever hit the ground under me. I would dive. I would fly. I would throw whatever body part I could out somewhere to make sure that my flyer never touched the ground first. There was always something between her and the ground. And that's that's a lesson that stays with you over time. It's sacrificing your body for somebody else. And I think that's something that, that obviously in the military plays itself out in combat.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So I guess a couple of things that you said in there. So, and all appreciation, shout out to our cheer teams and everything. So all good with that. One, I guess the notion that you had some ROTC guys involved or other crew members, I don't male or women, but female. So it made it a little bit easier. But I guess this notion about there's always a deeper step, that I guess I was just relating it to, some of the things I'm a bike swimmer and yoga guy, but it's kind of the same way, no matter how stiff you start or flexible as you get into yoga, every time you hit another plateau, it just opens another door to all these other things that you can try to do. And it's really true with, I think, most things in life that have some kind of steps to it. So it's kind of a lifelong kind of deal. You think you're achieving one level, and as soon as you get there, you realize there's a whole nother universe beyond that.
It's the world's best it's the world's best virtual reality Tetris game. As soon as you get to another level, bam, another one pops up, and you just keep going. You never know when it ends.
Yeah. Okay. And then tied into, and so the ROTC. So you can tell us when you got into college, what drew you to the ROTC, and whether it was family or whatever, or however you got pulled into that. But this notion about loyalty and sacrifice. So again, between military and sports, certainly a theme that's really consistent, right? I mean, I've never felt more accepted or more committed to anything, maybe outside of my immediate family, than the sports teams that I had the opportunities to play with, And so, and I've always, and in the MVP world, we certainly hear that all the time about, those kind of relationships within that. So that loyalty, commitment to other, and the willingness to sacrifice yourself in order to protect that other person with you. So, well, let's jump then. Unless there's a great family story, I'm curious, like core lesson that you learned from your immediate family, anything that really drove you, and how did that lead you to go into ROTC?
I mean, so ROTC genuinely, Bruce, and I mean, like, I never had any intentions of being here for 23 years. I literally was the guy who used ROTC as a means to an end. It's the only reason I did it. So when I was touring around for schools, all the schools I wanted to go to were private Catholic Jesuit institutions in the Northeast, right? For the most part, I applied to a couple other ones that were far out, but it was really a toss up between Villanova and Loyola in Maryland where I went. I just felt really comfortable. The campuses are small and everything else. And I mean, the school sizes were small. They weren't 30, 40,000, like big major schools. I think Villanova was 8 and Loyola was 4. So I was comfortable there and the campuses were beautiful and everything. But the problem was, I have a single mom and trying to pay. And I was the kid who wanted to go to a private high school too, as well. So I went to private Catholic school high school because I wanted to have a better education and everything else. And I had like all these, delusions of grandeur as a kid of what I was going to make of myself, and had these wonderful dreams that, I put my mother in a bind for. So, it was like one of those things. Hey, Mark, how we pay for college. We didn't get, big financial aid packages or anything. And my stepfather was a Vietnam vet. And a couple of my mother's friends were Vietnam vets. And they said, well, why don't you think about ROTC? And I'm like, what's that? And they explained to me, oh, you go in as an officer, you get to be in charge of that. And it never piqued my interest. It never made sense. But my mother and eventually sat down. She's like, look, if you're going to go to college, you have to do this. We can't, nobody can afford these schools. We can't afford it. If you want to go there, this is what you have to do. Okay. So I did it. And initially I didn't get on scholarship my first year. I had to apply for it after I got there. And so The second year there, I got a scholarship, but I'm a 3-year scholarship to pay for the rest of my education. I still had a ton of student loans like everybody else did because the schools were majorly expensive. Nothing like they are now, of course, but different conversation. And I thought I was just going to do my 4 years and get out. I genuinely, I wasn't, and I say this all the time to people. I had such a bad attitude, Bruce. I really did. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't bought into it. I was in the wrong headspace because Mark at that age, third person reference to myself, was so focused on what he wanted. He didn't want anything to derail anything of what he wanted to do. And it wasn't an opportunity to me. It was an obstacle. I just had to clear it. I had to tick down the days until it was done. I was good at it. Like I was good at leading. I had a natural leadership ability. I was good at, working with other people and being part of a team and gathering folks together and rallying and motivating. All that stuff came very easy and natural to me, but I wasn't mentally bought into the bigger process. And, to make a longer story short, but, I always tell people if I could go back and do anything different in my military career, I would go back and be a lieutenant again and I would do it better. I would do it right. I would be more mentally bought in. I would try to do more and experience more because I was so focused on what I wanted that I didn't bother to take advantage of the things that were in front of me. Right. And that was a short-sighted mistake on my part. Regret sounds like a heavy word, but I regret not embracing the opportunity in front of me more. I didn't do that until I was finding out that I was getting deployed. That's when I opened my eyes and said, it's time for you to embrace what is in front of you and not treat it like it is an obstacle, but an opportunity. And once you change your perspective, once you flip your mindset, everything starts to look different. So that's kind of where ROTC came from and how I got into the military.
Okay. So, and I had some mindset questions in there because that's certainly something we talk about all the time, especially with our athletes about mindset and what they do, but we can kind of roll back to that. But in the context of that mindset as it was changing, and I guess you said deployment, so that would still be after Fort Hood, right? So, I mean, you went to Fort Hood and you were still kind of and so I guess my one question though is, like you said, you were really focused on other things. So I know you're a communications major. Yep. So what vision did you have for your life that didn't include the military?
I wanted to be in broadcasting. I wanted to be in radio and television.
Okay.
I wanted to cover sports, be in sports, radio, and television. It's what I went to school for. If I wasn't going to play sports professionally, I wanted to be around it. I wanted to be part of it, at least on the periphery, and cover it and talk about it and be a reporter and everything else. Like every kid who gets into broadcasting back who's my age, you wanted to be on ESPN, right? Like that was the creme. That was the goal, was to be on SportsCenter. So that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to work towards. And like I said, it felt like at the time, ROTC in the military was sort of in the way.
Just pain. Okay. So you get through school, you graduate communications, and then part of the ROTC deal is that you still owe them a couple of years, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So you're off to Fort Hood and you stay there.
I got commissioned on a Friday. I graduated on a Saturday. I was in the Army on Monday. I had time to go home to my mother's for a meal, an Italian pasta meal on Sunday, and then boom, out the door.
Boom, out you go. Okay. So then 2 years there, right? And then you get back to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And so then you transition though, after your 2 years, then there's something going on because then you decide because after the 2 years, is your commitment over? And then No,
it wasn't. So what was happening then? I mean, I left active duty 3 months prior to 9/11. What was happening, and this was sort of the tail end of the Clinton administration, they were downsizing the active force. If you have to kind of hit the rewind button historically and remember what was going on, when Clinton was president, outside of all the stuff that was going on, still the greatest economy in the world at that point. The Dow had passed 10,000 for the first time. We had peace with everybody. Everything was great. And they downsized the military and cut the defense budget because they didn't see a need for a large military. So they had lowered the active duty levels to what they were pre-World War II. You're talking only about an active force of around 120 to 150,000 troops, which is very, very small. And so they were letting people off active duty, and in fact, pushing them off active duty to finish out the rest of their commitment in the National Guard. So I was one of the people who was sent to go finish out the rest of my commitment in the National Guard and not stay on active duty. So that's what I did.
Okay. So then after college, with the ROTC, then you owed them 4 years. Is that right? And
yeah, I owed 4 full years, and then what would have been 4 years in what they call the IRR, the inactive ready reserve, where you're just on a list in case the shit hits the fan, then they call you.
Okay. All right. So then you're back.
And literally after I left, the shit hit the fan, by the way.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, all right. So 3 months, 9/11 goes, and then there's the search for bin Laden and all that kind of stuff starts to happen. So, okay. And then you're back to Baltimore. That's when you get on the cheer team.
Yep.
And I know you start your kind of radio TV stuff and you're starting to do that, but then we hit Baghdad 1, as I referenced it. So you're off to Iraq 2005 with the 10th and 5th Special Forces.
Yep.
So so just give me the timing then. So if you graduate and then 2 years and then you're at Baltimore, how long was it after you left Fort Hood before this 2005? Just because I'm not quite sure when you graduated.
I graduated in 99. So I left active duty in late 2001. And then I was there in Baltimore and the reason I went back to Baltimore, by the way, all my friends were there. I was 23 or 24 at the time, whatever it was. And all my friends were still there. Everybody I went to college with, I'm like, let me go back there instead of going back home to New York where I grew up. So I just went to go hang out with all my friends because I got a job and that was it. And that's where I wanted to be. So that was sort of the reason I had gone back to Baltimore, but I was there for about 3.5 years before I got deployed again, or I got deployed for the first time rather.
Okay. So tell us about how that goes then. So you're working away and then
I'm plugging away at the civilian career. I got all these things lined up and everything that I wanted to do. And breaks are starting to happen. I'm doing play-by-play on the radio and, I'm starting to get side jobs here and there. I'm starting to work my way through as I'm doing like a sales job full time at this point in time. But, I had sort of worked my way through and I felt like the big break was about to come and then boom. It's like, hey, Mark, you've been picked for deployment to go to Iraq. And I remember initially, not wanting to go. Like, I was like, I don't want to go. Not because I was like afraid or anything like that. It was just because once again, young Mark was so focused on what Mark wanted that it wasn't about what anybody else. It was about what Mark wanted. And so I had to do some really hard soul searching and everything else and talk to a lot of my military mentors and everything else and come to the realization. It's like, hey man, there's two ways you can do this. Okay. Because one, I came to the realization you can't back out, right? One, you raised your hand and gave an oath and swore to do this if ever asked. You can't just walk away from that because that's not who you are. That's number one. Number two, even if you did, that means somebody else has to go in your place. That guy could have a wife and 3 kids and he's got a lot more on the line than you do. It's like, that's selfish. Don't do that. You're not that guy. So I knew I was going to go. And once I realized, I came to the realization, okay, you have to go. Then I just had to look at it very simply. It's like, you can look at this one of two ways. You can bitch and whine the whole way through about it, and you can complain and make it miserable and make it awful. Or you can grab the bull by the horns, get on top, and do your very best damn job possible and ride this thing all the way through and let the chips fall where they may. And when faced with those two options, Bruce, it was obvious what to do. Right. It's like, change your mindset, man. Just wrap your arms around this thing, give it a big hug, and let's go. And let's make the very damn best out of it. Because at the end of the day, what you're about to walk into, you might not come out of. And how do you want to spend your last days? Do you want to spend it whining, bitching, and complaining about what you're not happy about? Or do you want to go out with some measure of dignity and respect and at least have the people around you know that you're actually doing your very damn best?
Yeah. Well, at least in our world with the meditation and mindfulness stuff, there's a sense of that the world in reality rises up to meet the expectations and the energy that you project. And so if you're expecting, at least to attack it that way and to have good positive energy and all that kind of stuff, at least makes the whole experience better. And they always talk about they talk about the 2 arrows too, right? The first arrow may be pierced by the world and you can't control that one. But the second arrow we almost put in by ourselves when we whine, complain, and bitch, and we create our own suffering through all that kind of shit. So, all right. So this is kind of would you say this is kind of major mindset shift 1 in your life?
This deployment to this day, after 23 years, is still the pinnacle of my military career. And nothing comes close to it, honestly. And I truly believe because I had changed my mindset, I ended up being blessed with the greatest assignment ever. I was a captain at the time, and somebody from the Department of Defense, the Department of the Army could have said, Mark, here are all the assignments in Iraq right now. You're going to go for a year to 15 months. Pick one, any one you want. I couldn't have picked a better assignment on my own. There's just no way I couldn't have picked it. We got deployed with the special operations folks. We got attached to special operations. Now you got to remember, okay, I'm a guy who, not an infantryman. Okay. I was a logistics guy. It's just what the military gave me. I'm not a door kicker, not a trigger puller. I don't have any of that training. I got a whole different world. And I'm walking in to go fight side by side and work side by side with the most elite fighting force in the world. And for the first time in my life, I quickly and easily recognized you're not the star. You're not going to be the star. No matter how hard you try, you can't be the star. So here's what you do. Okay. Play the role you're given to the very best of your ability. And when I realized that very quickly, I'm looking around, I'm like, yo, all these dudes are badasses. And I'm just a big old, not that. Yeah. I wanted to be at least somewhat PC. So, and I realized how much training these guys had, everything. But I also realized they had the same mindset I did, that if you work hard and you just stay focused and you do the job in front of you and do it really well, guess what? You're going to be accepted. And that's all they ever needed. And I could pick up on that very quickly. And I say this all the time. The one way I knew that they accepted me, the one way I knew that I was doing a good job was because they kept giving me more work. Because I realized very quickly that those level of operators, those level of people, they don't tell you when you mess up. They don't tell you how to fix it. They don't tell you anything. You know what they do? They just work around you and ignore you. They don't speak to you anymore. Right. And as long as they, and it got to a point, Bruce, where they actually started coming to me. They'd walk them out, Mark, I need this. Can you get it for me? Yep, got it. No problem. I'll get right back to you. They actually, that was their acceptance of me as one of their peers. I didn't wear a special forces tab. I wasn't a Ranger. I didn't go through any of the training that did, but I knew that I could be counted on by them to do certain things. And then it turns into, hey, Mark, we're going on this mission. Do you want to come with us? Okay, sure. Why not? What am I supposed to do? I'll just pull security on this vehicle. Oh, me? Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't really know what I'm doing, but they asked me to go. So I said, yes. So, that's what it was. I got to be a part of so many cool things, so many things that I should have never been a part of. And I believe all that comes from the simple mindset that it was just like, I decided to embrace this, man, and decided to really look at it as the best opportunity of my life. And it rewarded me not only from a military standpoint in that deployment and everything else, but it rewarded me with an experience that ultimately altered my life.
Okay. And just for the flip of a switch and a mindset reset, you're off and running. And it creates all those kind of opportunities. So you're looking for opportunity, you're looking for ways to contribute, looking for ways to do your job, and you get embraced and you work through that. So, okay. So you're over there, was it 15 months then? Baghdad?
12, 15 plus months. Yeah, it was all said and done.
Okay. Then you're back and then back into civilian life. And then Baghdad comes calling again in 2011. So fill us in on the years there. So and I guess, one of the things that we often talk about, and I want to get to your hazard ground, because I know this is at least some of the stuff that, our focus working with vets, at least telling stories, has really been about the transitions, both, getting into, and then the experience they have, typically in deployments, but not always. And then kind of when they're coming back. And so for you, you came back, and my sense is National Guard, you come back, you're a little bit more thrust into what it feels like to be a civilian than full-time military in that sense. And so you come back from a deployment. How was that transition for you? Because certainly you're in a combat area, around combat people in that mix. So how was the transition back, and then kind of just being part of the National Guard then until 2011 when they knock again?
Yeah. It's, I old adage of wish I had known then what I know now. Just pack all that shit down and put it in a box, Bruce, and don't talk about it. Just leave it there. Whatever you went through, it's gone. It's over. Don't worry about it. It's there. And you just sort of leave it there. And full disclosure, I left it there for the better part of 15 years and never touched it. Not knowing how it was having an effect on me, and didn't really recognizing the effect it was having on me until I had kids. And until somebody had said to me, don't pass your PTSD on to your children, because you can, right?
Sure.
And it's not that you can pat your behavior and how you manifest it will be reflected upon your children. So, go ahead.
There's a lot of research now though that military personnel and or others with really severe PTSD, actually genetically, you can pass that on through the chromosomes with your kids. And so the way in which they respond to anxiety, stressful situations is actually increased in a way. And so
you don't have to make it worse.
Yeah. Right. So it really is a thing. So anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead. So not wanting to share it on your kids. And so kind of,
let me
just one other, as you were transitioning out. So how did you get that message about pack it in? Is that what, I mean, was that just kind of
No,
the
it was just
way-
it was a matter of I guess practice. It's just like the next mission in front of me was transitioning back to life. It's like, don't stall on the stuff that you were dealing with. Don't worry about the flashbacks. Don't worry about the nightmares. Don't worry about, how quick you get angry. Don't worry about your fear of not having a weapon on you. Don't worry about being around crowded people. Just ignore that, just move on. And not deal with it, and not talk about it, and not go see anybody about it. Just as an example, for the first 6 months I was back, I carried like 2 or 3 knives with me everywhere because I couldn't carry a weapon, right? Like I needed a weapon on me. I felt unsafe everywhere I went. And so I literally, I would hide them on places on my body. You probably shouldn't hide anything. And I would take everywhere I went when I would go out to bars and clubs and everything as a mid-20s guy, and they would pat you down at the door. I'd find a way to sneak it in, because I was not going to be unguarded ever.
Right.
Because there was something that was going to go down. I was always going to be ahead of the curve and always going to be ready. So, it's stuff like that you don't tell anybody, you just pack it away and move on, because transition is the next mission for you, right? Reintegrating yourself into society is the next mission. And as soon as you can accomplish that, you kind of leave everything in the rearview mirror. So that transactional relationship develops in your life because that's what you have in the military. Finish this mission, move to the next one. Finish that mission, move to the next one. So reintegration was just the next mission in front of me. And I did a fairly good job at it. I think in retrospect, I didn't have any, major things that would derail me. I didn't self-medicate. You didn't turn to booze or drugs or anything like that, to help me sleep at night. I just went right back to work. And that's immediately what I did. And my career sort of took off, for lack of a better term, in the broadcasting world. Like I was moving, and I was very happy about it. I had planted myself back on the ground, made a name for myself, got my own radio show, did all these things that, I wanted to do along the way. And then lo and behold, I find out I'm getting deployed again. But I'll say one other thing. I became a much better leader and a much better officer and a much better military member and a better member of that team after being back, right? Because I had learned so much. I had grown so much because of that. And that's when I started to realize, look, you owe it to everybody around you to impact them positively whenever you are serving, whenever you're in uniform. And that extends beyond uniform, right? You ultimately are carrying your position, your rank, your stature with the military everywhere you go. And that's not a responsibility you should take lightly, because everything you do as a leader impresses on people. And so, that was another part of reintegration that I had recognized, was that, now I'm embracing everything about the military. Everything is an opportunity for me. Everything is a chance for me to get better, to get bigger, to go on, to do something different, to impact more lives, to train more soldiers, to have a net positive for the organization. And that's when it stopped becoming about me and started becoming about the military. What can I do I just want to make the organization better. Whatever it is, what do you guys want to stand outside in the snow? I'll stand outside in the snow to make it better. You want me to shovel shit? I'll go pick it up and dump it wherever you want, just to make the organization better, because that's my job now, is to make the organization better in everything that I touch.
Okay. So we're coming up on the door with Baghdad again. Yep. I just, when we define the mission as reintegrating as quickly as possible, it kind of assumes, though, it's almost like we're going to run a track race, and I was backpacking and hiking, and so I've got this big backpack on, and so I'm going to transition into this running around a track, but I never take that backpack off. And so when you come out of the military, because it's like your rucksack goes with you psychologically or otherwise, and that you keep carrying that thing around. And so you're on the track and you're running the race and maybe even doing really good. But the fact is, you're still carrying some of that baggage around. Is that a fair characterization? And did you, in those 6 years between getting, done it in the first round to the second, was that backpack and any of those other issues that you really hadn't dealt with, was any of that kind of percolating for you or bubbling up in any way, or was it pretty well submerged?
No, it was definitely pretty well submerged for me, honestly. Okay. Like I had flashbacks and things that had, really bothered me. And I had moments that stuck with me. A lot of them were fleeting for other people who were around me. But, in unpacking all this stuff, it's almost like my memories of the flashbacks are worse than the flashback themselves, and it was little things, it was like 4th of July. I would be inside when fireworks started going off. I'd be inside, just wasn't comfortable with it. Didn't like it. There were plenty of instances where, my mind would just start to wander and go different places, but I never talked about it. I never shared it with anybody. I just sort of, left it alone and waited for the moment to pass and then just moved on. And so in that span, I never, these things happen, but you just, okay, it's over, it's done, move on, because you're so focused on whatever is in front of you that is next. Anything that deters from that will take away from your ability to accomplish a mission or a job or a task or get to the next job in your civilian career, whatever it is. And again, I at this point, I'm single guy, so I don't have a wife and kids that I only have to worry about me, thankfully. And I think honestly, that's why I was able to leave it where it was for so long, because I didn't have anybody else in my life that was drawing off my energy, at least not somebody that was, what it's like to be married, obviously. That person who's living with you is feeding off your energy on a daily basis. I never had that issue. So I was able to compartmentalize it and leave it where it was for a long time without it ever really becoming an issue.
Yeah. And if you enter into that gray, as Jay Glazer likes to say, or that dark spot, there's nobody really around to say, what's going on? Are you okay? And all that kind of thing. So you can kind of ride through it at home and take care of it. So, okay. So career's going good. You're doing a lot of stuff. And then the Army comes knocking again. So tell us how that went and tell us a little bit about that deployment then.
Yeah. I mean, there was certainly some more reservations. Like there was never a pause of me not going, right? Okay. I got it. Call my number. I'm here. Where are we going? What are we doing? Just, tell me what I need to know. There was a little bit more concern on the line for me personally, because in my civilian professional career, I was a lot more advanced now than I was before. It was like when I remember having during my first deployment, just to rewind for a second, at the end of it, I remember having a conversation with my mother. She's like, well, what do you plan to do when you get back? I'm like, I'm going all in, going into radio, going into TV. This is what I'm doing. And she said to me, she goes, well, if that doesn't work out, what's your plan B? And I said, there is no plan B. I don't have a backup plan. I'm not thinking about failing. I was like, Wayne Gretzky didn't wake up in the morning and go, if I'm not going to be a hockey player, I guess I will be an accountant. He never thought about being an accountant. He just thought about being a hockey player. So that was my mentality. But I also was able to have that mentality because I didn't have anything to risk, right? Like I wasn't there yet. I wasn't in the game. So it was easy for me to have that sort of mentality. Now, the second deployment, there's a lot on the line. I've got a lot of stature. I've got a lot of, clout within, and I've earned a lot of things in the broadcasting community that I now have to put on pause, with the danger of not getting them back. I know we're supposed to be guaranteed things, but I was under contract and I have no employer protections as a contract employee, because when the contract runs out, it is fulfilled. Even if I'm deployed for a year of it, the contract is fulfilled. They're not obligated to give me a new one. So, I was in a much different precarious situation with my career, and I had to have some hard conversations with the radio station that I was at. I'm like, am I going to get my job back? Are you going to bring, tell me now if you're not going to. So, oh yeah, we'll bring you back, and everything else. And so, I at least had somewhat of a sort of reassurance, and I was smart about it too. Like, hey, let me write you guys letters from where I am overseas. You post them on the website. They agreed to do that. And, every now and then when I could call in, they would let me call in and talk on the air and everything to sort of keep my presence there and everything else. And so, I do remember though, when, Bin Laden was killed during my second deployment, which was hysterical, at least from where I was, because I did have a cell phone in Iraq at that point in time, because it was 2011.
Right.
And I just remember going to bed, waking up, and it was on vibrate. And I just remember my phone going off at like 5:36, so much so that it woke me up. And I'm like, what's going on? It's like, you have 12 missed calls and I have like 15 text messages. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so I turn around and all the messages are like, are you coming home? Are you coming home? Are you coming home? Right. And then I find out Bin Laden gets killed, and I actually pick up the phone and call somebody, and they're like, are you coming home? I'm like, the hell would I be coming home? He was in Pakistan. I'm in Iraq. What do these two have to do with each other? Go anywhere. What do you think? We're just leaving now? But that day was actually kind of fun for me from a radio standpoint, because I got to go on like a dozen stations across the country. Okay. They thought it was so cool that somebody live from Iraq could have this conversation with somebody. So that was like a fun day for me, a great day for America, obviously. But, so I was smart about my deploying this time around to sort of stay connected. But, I knew I was heading into a much different scenario. I knew I was heading into a much different mission. The second time I was going to Iraq, we were going there to leave, which to me never made any sense. It's like, okay, we're leaving. Well, why are you bringing, just leave, just get up and go. It's like, it's not even like going to the store just to pick up nothing. I'm going to go there and then I'm going to drive and leave with nothing. That's essentially what we were doing. So it was a much different kind of operation. What was interesting for me was going back to Baghdad 5 years after, and looking at things. I distinctly remember my first deployment. I had journaled like a maniac. So much so that I had like 170 pages of single space font of a journal that to this day I've never shared with anybody. I've only shared the last page of it, which I dedicated to things that I had learned, that I had valued, that I had affirmed, and things of that nature. It's the only thing I've ever shared with anybody. But I always wrote in the journal that at the end of it, I would love to go back to Baghdad, maybe 5-10 years down the road. At the time, I was, premature in thinking that the war would have been over.
Right.
So I had always said I'd love to go back someplace and visit, because there were parts of Iraq. My first deployment, I drove all over that damn country. There were parts of Iraq that were really gorgeous. They were really beautiful. It was just like peace and calm and serene. And I always said I'd love to come back here someday, as a civilian, and just walk here and see, that things have gotten better and they're different, because I believe that we can and we will make them different. I got back there 5 years later and it was shit. It wasn't any better. In fact, it was worse. It was like I looked around at certain spots I went to, I'm like, oh my God, what did you guys do? Like, you ruined everything. Like it was, and in fairness, not like we ruined it as Americans. I'm just saying, if you're anybody who's in sailing understands this term, and this is the best way I can describe it. When they talk about hull velocity, that dictates how fast a boat can actually go because of the way it's aeronautically designed, whatever it is, you get the point. The way it's designed is your hull velocity. We hit hull velocity in Iraq in about 2009. It was never getting any better than where it was then, period. We had reached the peak. It could do nothing but go down. And that's exactly what had happened. We had started taking a downturn in 2009 into 2010. And it was never going to get any better after that. We had just overstayed our welcome. Anything that we had tried to do was not going to be able to be accomplished if it wasn't done by 2009. And whatever we did do, again, that was the best it was going to get. So when I looked around at everything and I'm like, yeah, we've actually gotten worse. I understood why after the fact. And so, that was a little bit disconcerting. Even to this day, I think it's so cathartic. And I know we'll talk about the hazard ground, but I've interviewed many vets, particularly Vietnam ones, who have gone back to the site in Vietnam where they were in battle and everything else. And the catharsis and the amount of emotions that come rushing back to you, it's so hard to deal with, but it is so important. And there is a part of me that absolutely wants to go stand right at the intersection where I got into a firefight, that wants to roll over the same ground that I rolled over an IED, that wants to be part of, so many things where I was and so many memories that I have. On one hand, I just want to go there again. But on the other hand, it's like, even as I talk about it now, I can feel the anxiety building up, imagining what it's going to feel like to stand in that spot again and look around and just relive all those moments. But most of the veterans have told me that once all that goes away, there is a certain level of catharsis and peace that you arrive at when it's all said and done.
Right. You can't go around it. You got to go through it.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing about those memories and those experiences, that, to the extent that you leave them in a box over there, even if you kind of open the closet door a little bit and look at it, at some point you got to flip the light on and kind of go in, and maybe with a little bit of help. So maybe there's a trip to Baghdad in your future yet?
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to wait a little bit longer. It's probably not the smartest thing to do right now for your help, but I would love to go. Yeah. I mean, maybe somewhere down the road, if the right organization comes along, we could put together a tour for several of us to go back and work with the State Department or whatever. But I think in order to sort of get to a place of peace with those demons, for some of us, and I won't say this for everybody, and I won't try to speak for everybody else.
Right.
For some people, I think that there is a certain amount of, standing there again and understanding all those emotions in that moment allows you to, those thoughts where you have, I would do this different, I would do that different. I think you realize when you stand there again, that even if you look in those moments, you did the best you could and you did what was right. And that should be enough for you to be able to come to peace with it, or at least on some terms. And look, maybe I'm dead wrong on it. I can't say 100% Bruce one way or another. I know for me, as painful as it would be, I think I would probably do it. I'm 90% sure if somebody offered a way to go safely do it, I would probably take them up on it.
Yeah. Well, at least to give it that kind of shot. Well, let's then, keeping that in mind, I guess, then let's roll into, so that deployment ends. And so now you've been through the transition back to the States, but you're still going to be in the military. It's not like you're, going to leave. So, you're coming back to your civilian life. You've got some threads going on. How was the transition after this, I mean, this deployment seems like it was a little bit different. You know, I mean, you went in
Yeah.
even more eyes wide open, close, maybe a little closer to combat. I don't know, because you're with an infantry division there, I think.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, no, actually, I wasn't, because like kinetic operations had
Okay.
basically come to a standstill. Like I was actually itching. I'm like, hey, can we go do something? If there's a mission I can go on, can you please take me? And at this point, I'm a mid-grade major. They're like, no, you're not going anywhere. You just stay here at the stay here in the main headquarters building. I'm like, boy, this sucks. So I didn't get as much opportunity to do a lot of the things I did the first time around. You know, I think there's still some impactful lessons. I mean, purely from a military standpoint, I learned a lot working at that high level for a division headquarters, where you're dealing with a 2-star general and a lot of 06s at the time and 05. Like, as an 04, as a major at that point in time, I'm like one of the low men on the totem pole with all these other colonels, lieutenant colonels, and generals running around. So there's a certain amount of learning my place again that I needed to embrace and understand from a different perspective. And you do realize more than anything that whatever job you have, whatever scope you're in, your job is your job, and you have to control what you can control, and doing your job really well is super important, because the minute you stop doing your job, somebody else around you is going to be focused and worried about you not doing your job. And that's taking away from them doing their job. Right. I mean, in football terms, Belichick says it the best. Just do your job. That's it. You don't have to do more than that. If you can do more than that, great. But just do your damn job, because when you're not doing your job, you're taking energy, effort, and inertia away from everybody else who are doing their job. And that is more of a detriment to the team than anything else, because you're affecting everybody else. So that's what I focused on. It wasn't a glorious deployment. It was totally different. And again, from a military standpoint, I absolutely needed it to understand, and it would make me a better overall soldier and leader down the road. It's one of those jobs that is more, there wasn't any grunt work, but it was just grunt paperwork or grunt admin work from that standpoint that needed to be done. And so, you take what you can from it and discard what you don't need.
Okay. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we talk about that all the time in sports. Just do your job, and you don't do any more than that, because if you have 11 guys on offense and they actually all do their job, then it goes pretty well. So
it should go theoretically.
You don't have to do any more than that. So, okay. Well then, so transitioning back then, so how was that? And then you're kind of moving in, and then let's kind of roll into, the podcast. So, you go in 2011, you're back in 2012, something.
I get back in beginning of part of 2012,
Okay.
Transition for me was easier this time. Again, I don't think I ever really paid attention to some of the experiences I had that had a major effect on me, on that deployment. Because, whereas I wasn't on the roads, we were getting mortared every night. And the idea of, a rocket landing in your ass is never fun on a routine basis, especially when it happens, 5 or 6 nights out of 7 nights out of a week. And so I never really took stock in that, just put it away. And I was so even more hyper-focused this time around on getting back into work, because I was worried I was going to lose everything that I had built at that point in time. So I didn't even spend time on transition, just get right back. Like literally, I remember I got off a plane, I took maybe like 4 days off, 3 or 4 days off. And then boom, I went right back to the studio. I'm like, I want to work. Put me to work. They're like, you sure? I'm like, yes, put me to work. Just get me on the air as soon as possible. I want people to know I'm back. I want everybody to know I'm here. I want to go back to work. And so that's exactly what I did. Again, probably to my detriment at the time, but it was on to the next for me in transition.
Okay.
And that was important because I had to build everything back up to where it was.
Okay. So then tell us that story about building that back up. You moved to Atlanta in 2014, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, so career's going okay, but when does some of this stuff start to unpack on you, or does it? Maybe it never does. I don't know. So
it didn't, again, truthfully, I did not really tackle this until last year. I really didn't get into it until last year. It became one of those things where, and the pandemic really had nothing to do with it per se, but it's one of those things where there were stressors in life that started to mount. And you get to a point of critical mass where the stress gets to a point and the anxiety gets to a point where like it is having such an effect on you. It's like, if I don't release all of this, it's going to come out some way in a bad way that is going to not end up well for me or the people around me. And again, most of all, I said I think the biggest part was I just kept noticing that I kept snapping at my kids every time they didn't listen to me. Like not after 5 times, like literally after the first time. And I was having this biophysical reaction. My heart was starting to pound. I could feel it. I was starting to shake. And you get to a point where it's like, man, you need to get a hold of yourself. You need to get a grip and you need to sit down and figure this out, because what's happening around you is having a net negative effect. You're not net positive anymore. You're net negative. And it took a lot of steps for me to get there. I think the hazard ground was a big part of it. I think that me constantly talking to other vets and hearing their story and hear them say, I had to get to this place to do this. I went through all this bad stuff and finally I got to do this, having them share their stories and talking with them one-on-one on the side, and picking up the phone and having some real hard conversations, with people that I had met and said, look, man, am I, what am I thinking? What am I feeling here? Do I really need to go? And they're like, yes, go get it checked. Just dude, even if you find out nothing is wrong, you'll have the peace of mind of knowing that there is nothing wrong with you. But if there is, you need to start to address it and deal with it. So, it took me a long time to get to that place.
Yeah. And just so, because I think, in all the stories that we've heard, people manifest this in different ways. So were you having external kind of life stressors, and maybe they weren't that big, but they were starting to kind of mount up? And certainly the whole period of COVID had a lot of different things going on with it. So whatever it was, but life's kind of happening and you're responding in ways that maybe are over the top compared to the stressors that are actually being thrown your way. Is that a fair way to kind of describe that?
Yeah, no, that's
so
it.
Okay. And then in the midst of that, you're finally kind of awakening and you're saying, shit, what's coming in is not great, but the way I'm responding is over the top compared to what we would like it to be. And so then you're starting to look around. And when do you first kind of think, this might have been related to your military service? And when does that kind of light bulb or mindset kind of change?
It changed when I realized that I could pass my PTSD on to my kids, but I didn't want my kids to think that their dad was a yeller nonstop. Because you yell at your kids and they have this reaction and they cry. And it's like, you don't want to see your children hurt and you don't want to be the cause of their hurt. And so, when you get to that point and you find yourself apologizing to the kids over and over again, and, you got people in your family looking around and go, what is wrong with you? And you have to step back for a second and go, did I really just lose it like that? And I tell you, Ring doorbells and those cameras in the house now can be a bitch. Watching yourself back on tape is it's never as bad as you think it is in your mind until you see it on tape and you're like, ooh, that was just me. And you did that. And that was ugly. And you are not who you think you are. I know you think you were under control and you got it under control. You don't have it under control. And you get those sort of awakenings and it's like, okay. And it's almost scary because you realize that you don't know who you are anymore. You're like, what you thought about yourself is no longer true because there's video evidence of you totally acting out of character.
Okay.
And so, it's stuff like that just got me to a point where it's like, okay, people would tell me, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, what had happened to you and what you had went through is part of the why you're acting the way you are now. And everybody says, look, man, you're exhibiting all the classic symptoms. Like we've all been through this. Like I other vets who had gone through this, like, yes, dude, like that's I did the same thing. Like I'm telling you, this is what you have. I'm not the doctor, but I'm telling you, when you go talk to somebody, they're going to tell you you have this because I did the same exact shit and I have it. So, if you've got chicken pox, I've got chicken. If I've had chicken pox, I know what chicken pox look like. You have chicken pox. You don't got to be a doctor, right? Like it's that simple. So it was having those conversations with people that just basically, said, you need to just go talk to somebody. Just go figure it out, man.
Right.
And I picked up the phone and I made the call and to the VA and, you want to talk about a humbling experience. You get to a spot and you start talking about things that you hadn't talked to anybody about. I've talked to people in the military about, we've shared stories over this, that, and the other. And, this was close and that was close. And dude, it was like that. And, you have those conversations, but you're not You're not having conversations like that with other military folks to sort of get to a place that is uncovering anything. You're just doing it to relate and have somebody understand. So you get, it's not even empathy. It's just sympathy that you're getting like, hey, yeah, I got you, man. I've been there. You know, we've all been through the same stuff and we're still here. We're still kicking it around, but it's surface level. Now I'm talking to a VA guy who is going to assess if I'm mentally, you know, in a spot to be a fit father, you know, a fit parent, you know, fit in the workplace and everything else. And so you start having these conversations and they ask questions and they, you know, and they want you to answer them, you know, tell me what happened. And you're like, you start talking and then you just diarrhea starts coming out like just words and you just keep getting to the deep part of the story. And then you get to a spot where you start explaining things. And the next thing you know, Bruce, you're in freaking tears. Like just emotion is pouring out of you from stuff that happened 10, 15 years ago. And you have no idea why. And you're just in tears and you're sitting there crying with a damn stranger on a Zoom call like this on the other end. And you don't even know why. And it's just like one of those experiences. It's like, how did I even get here? Why am I even here? Like, did I even do the right thing in having this conversation?
Right.
You know, and I spent nearly an hour and a half, 2 hours with that doctor explaining everything. And he was so nice and he was just very genuine and he took a lot of notes and, you know, asked a lot of questions. And it's just like, you, for the first time, it's weird. Like, have you ever had your resume read back to you by somebody else? You know, when you do an introduction to somebody in a podcast and you read their resume and people are like, wow, I did. Thank you for that great introduction. And because it's like, you don't realize everything that you've done or accomplished. When the doctor reads your resume back to you and starts going, you did this and you went through this and then this happened. You're like, holy shit, that was a lot. But you never took stock in the fact that it was a lot. And, you know, I think that is something for me that was, you know, genuinely eye-opening and got me to a place where I was ready to start talking more about it.
You almost needed validation, like in your effort to find a little bit of help. You needed, like, because your track record then it warranted like maybe having been impacted by the whole experience. So when you go look back on it, this happened, and you went through this and that, then you're like, wow, you know, here I am. So, I mean, did you fight a little bit? I mean, some of the vets that we talked to, they go through a lot of, I think, self-blame and judgment around like they're not tough enough or they're too vulnerable or whatever. But, you know, as they start to recognize that they need some help or these things are impacting them, it's like, you know, they feel guilty or bad about it, that they shouldn't have this kind of weakness.
I mean, I can remember when that doctor I spoke to said to me at the end of the meeting, he said, Mark, you have PTSD. And when he said that for the first time in my life, I felt broken. I don't know why. I don't understand why. I'm not broken, but just hearing that made me feel like I was broken. Like I was not who I was, like all the strength and everything that I had exhibited and all the, you know, now it's like you're weak. And in that moment, you kind of have to decide, do you want to either ignore that like it doesn't exist? Do you want to wallow in it, or do you want to take a position of, okay, how do I get stronger? How do I get better? Right. And once again, I'm at this situation where the choice seems obvious to me. You know, you have to sort of come to grips with it and understand what it is. But the choice is, how do I get better? What steps do I need to do to get better? Who do I talk to? How do I work this out? And I think that is ultimately the choice that is sometimes hard to see for vets, right? You know, ignorance is the natural reaction because nobody wants to feel weak. Nobody wants to feel broken. We all just want to be strong and be able to get back in the fight because that's what is ingrained in us and has been for a long time and many years, depending on how long you're in. And for me, I wanted back in the fight, but for the rest of my life, because I can get back in the fight, I was fine physically for the most part. For the rest of my life, though, I didn't want to make more fights. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't need to make more fights that I needed to get into and make things harder for myself. So, you know, it was just about getting better. You know, you have to make that conscious choice that I want to be better.
Yeah. Well, this came up in the huddle last night and then on the Zoom this last week with the LA West, but just this conversation about, you know, guys were talking about it and they were feeling bad about it, you know, a little bit of the same thing. They stress, anxiety kind of pushed them. They were responding to people in the workforce or their families in ways they didn't want to. And, you know, the one thing that we talked about, you know, the first step to change is just awareness of your current situation and then some level of acceptance, not like it's, I want to be here, but just like, okay, I can take a breath. I can see clearly and honestly who I am, what I'm going through, and just kind of deal with that in a way that doesn't judge, doesn't critique in a way, and just, so this is where I'm at. And then you can kind of make an assessment to take some action about moving forward. Where do I go from here? Because I'm not showing up the way I want to show up. I'm not being the person I want to be. So what changes do I need to make, and what help do I need to get? And so we always celebrate when guys share some of that stuff, and or women. I don't mean to be gendered on that, but
Sure.
But because as soon as they start to see that awareness, and then also building in a little bit of patience, because it is quite the process. It's not an easy journey to take. So, okay. So that whole thing kind of comes to you on a silver platter about a year ago. And so are you, I mean, whatever you feel like comfortable sharing, but like, how's it? So from that doctor's meeting, where have you gone, and what have you had to do, or what has been helpful for you? And I guess, what I'd like to do as well. So in this midst of all this, then you started the Hazard Ground podcast.
Yeah. I started the Hazard Ground. Yeah, back in 2017. So we're coming up on 6 years. It'll be January of 23. It'll be 6 years that we've been around.
So
I genuinely
you were really well. Just let me just frame it. So you were really like kind of diving into vet stories, and I'm guessing somewhat compelled by it just because of some of the things you were going through, and wanted to use that format in order to try to listen and tell stories from other vets, which obviously is a little bit therapeutic and those kind of things. But I guess so in your own story, because your own awakening, I guess, to these issues, was what, 4 years later or 5 years later?
Yeah. I mean, I don't get to where I am without telling stories on the Hazard Ground. I genuinely don't.
Right. I'm with you. There's no doubt. So
I mean, I don't acknowledge my own story until I heard, like 200 other ones.
Yeah. No, I think that's really true. So tell us, are there some consistent themes that came up with those vets over those 200 stories that you've listened to and helped share? And then how does that connect to your own story and your own kind of journey into healing? Where's that taken you, and how has that maybe empowered you to kind of move forward with things?
I think the transcendent theme is in part healing. I mean, nobody's path is exactly the same, right? Like nobody's path and nobody's journey to healing is exactly the same. One, because we all didn't go through the same exact things, and two, because we don't all respond the same exact way to the same stimuli. So nobody is on the same exact path here. But what resonates is that you need to just get on the path, right? Like that's getting off the mat and getting on the path is the very first step of the whole thing. And how everybody gets there, again, is also different. What works for me and got me off the mat might not work for somebody else. It might not work for other vets. For me, it was a conglomeration of several things all happening at the same time. But paramountly, it's, there were two guests I had on the Hazard Ground. Those were the people who I ended up, when I heard their stories, I picked up the phone and called them. It said, I need to ask you something. This is personal. This is serious. I need to, and so I never, when I started the Hazard Ground, I never intended for it to be anything. I never even thought it was going to be a mental health thing. I just generally wanted to tell great stories. I enjoyed podcasts that told stories that could suck me into their lives and make me feel like I was on the journey with them. And I just generally wanted to tell amazing stories. And we've done that 100%. But we've also tackled some major mental health issues along the way. We've connected with people all over the world. We've caused people to not only speak up for vets, but people to sign up for the military. People always say, listen, I love this show because of this. I want to join the military. And we've chronicled history, which again was something I never thought that I would do. Just like this podcast will live in perpetuity. When my kids, I say this all the time to people on the show. I'm like, listen, when your kids ask you one day, Daddy, what'd you do in the war? Mommy, what'd you do in the war? Here you go. Pick up this and listen to this. And then we'll have a conversation about it. Right? Like that's the easiest way to do. Like instead of me explaining, let you listen to me explain it to somebody else who walked the same ground I did. And that's what makes the Hazard Ground special more than anything. Yeah. It's not because of me per se. It's just because I understand the subject matter better than everybody else. I've walked the same turf they've had. I went through many similar experiences. I know the emotions and the range of emotions that they've gone through, so they can speak to me plainly and I understand it, which allows me to ask better questions and lead to deeper conversations, which is why the mental health conversation comes up so much, because again, inadvertently, I was just connecting with them with what I went through. And we were able to find common ground. And in the process of doing this, the whole time, I bumped into many people and had many people on the show who shared stories that, planted the seed. Mark, you need to go check this out. You need to go fix this.
Right.
You're not as okay as you're saying you are. So, I think the Hazard Ground has done that incredibly. Those are some of the byproducts I never thought would come from the show. I'm very proud of it. I mean, I genuinely am. We're coming up on 300 episodes, and I couldn't be happier.
Right. Well, congratulations on that, because that really is something. Anything special planned for the 300th episode?
I hadn't thought about it yet. We're releasing 293 next week as of when we're recording this here. So I got 7 to go. I think, it'll be around the holidays. So I got to figure out what we're going to do for the 300th episode. I got to kind of figure out who that guest is going to be. But one way or another, we'll try to blow it out somewhere big. I'm hoping that I can get I'm working on a couple of big guests. So if you got any contacts to any big name guests, please let me know. And I'll make sure they're the 300th episode.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I have some phone numbers, but nobody ever calls me back. So
I know the feeling. Yeah. Kind of my life.
Yeah, I know. That's what we were coming up on 100. And then my daughter was like, oh, we should. I go, let's not worry about 100. 100's really just kind of getting your feet wet. You know what I mean? I said, let's not worry about that until we get to someplace else and see if we've survived that length of time. So, since then, anything else kind of that's been important or helpful for you? I guess one of the things that we like to talk about too is, so we talked about mindset earlier. And so really, that mindset that you talked about going into that first deployment where you said, this is my life. I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to use good energy. I'm bringing it. And then you had this awakening, here this last year. And so entered into kind of whatever and I'm not sure. I know you had that conversation with the doctor, and it almost in that point, like, okay, I've got PTSD, and moving from broken to, experienced, I guess, whatever term you want to say,
Sure.
But then working through it because you're realizing that you're not showing up necessarily in all situations in your life the way you want to. So how did mindset fit into kind of grappling with that in a way that's kind of without shame and without kind of, judgment? And then what things have been helpful for you? Do you have a daily kind of practice of anything? I mean, I know you work out and do those kind of things, but there's anything kind of, are you a meditator, mindfulness, breath work, any of those other kind of tools? So what has helped you, and are you still doing any kind of therapeutic kind of things?
No, still big into therapy. I mean, listen, I use the same adage every time. If you get your oil changed every 3,000 miles, you probably should get your head checked every 3,000 miles, if not sooner than that, right? I mean, it's just as simple as that. There's no reason not to do a sanity check and a compass check with somebody else who's going to be honest with you and level with you on what you're thinking and where you are. So I'm a big proponent of therapy. I'm still in it. And it's not, the specific cognitive behavioral therapy that they want, for the VA, but it's something that I believe is necessary for me. I definitely did meditation for a long time. It's something that helps when the physical anxiety for me was overwhelming, and I could have that biophysical reaction. Like I needed the meditation just to get myself back to zero, right? Or to get myself to a place where I could, begin to take some steps. And for anybody who doesn't do meditation, guys, it's only 10 minutes. Like, honestly, carve out the time. It's so worth it. I can genuinely speak to that. I will say the one thing that I've taken from all this, and you talk about mindset and everything else, my mindset now had to shift again for the latter part of my military career, and MVP has helped with this a little bit. My job now, the way I see is I'm on the 18th tee box here of my military career. When I'll get to the 18th tee, I hope isn't for another couple of years, but that said, it's my job now to lead at every single opportunity. The best thing I can do is download all the leadership skills that I have and impart them onto other parts of the organization and everybody. And this goes beyond the military and everybody around me. It's through everything. Empathy needs to be a bigger part of leadership, and people need to be a bigger part of leadership. Okay. And I don't think in the military right now, we've gotten to a place, and unfortunately the military has gotten sucked into a whole bunch of things politically it never should be. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get that out of it is with leadership at every level. And if as a leader, you are not leading with empathy and people, you're going to fail, because one, people have too many options out there now. They have too many other ways to express themselves. They have too many other ways to go out and make a living with a lot less stress and a lot more fun than choosing to put on a uniform. And the best thing you can do for the next generation of leaders is to download all the information you have and make sure that they have it. Whether they choose to use it, whether they choose to live by it, that's ultimately up to them. You can't force that on them. But what you need to do is just give them another subset of knowledge that you have, and hopefully it allows them to make better, clearer decisions down the road. You know, I don't ever want to stop being a leader in any organization. I don't ever want to stop leading and helping people understand how to lead, because leadership is a craft. It's part art and part science altogether. And those of us who have done it for 20 plus years at a high level owe it to everybody else to make sure that they are set up for success going forward, because inevitably the people change quicker than the organization does. And that's what the challenge the military is facing right now, is the people are changing quicker than the organization can catch up. And the only way to change, to keep up with the changing people, is to change with them and lead them in the direction you want to go. But you can't do that when your ideas are archaic and draconian to them. They're never going to follow you. You've got to speak their language.
Well, and then just with you have such a unique situation between your military experience and then civilian life, because you've had to balance those over the years. Do you feel like leadership in the civilian context, whether it's corporations or other kind of entities,
it's failing?
Do you think? Okay, well, I was going to, I didn't want to put words in, but I mean, because I'm just going to pull out. So what I'm hearing is, though, this notion of empathy, having empathy for those that you are leading, understanding where they're coming from, what they might be feeling in that moment, and actually kind of more of a humanistic model of leadership in the sense of bringing them along on those kind of values. And then when you talk about including the people, that it's really all about people. I mean, really, you have an outcome for the organization or whatever it is, but the outcome only gets there if you follow the process, and the process is only going to go that direction if the people, are going to go that way with you. And so, I mean, have you seen it? I mean, these same challenges seem equally vibrant in both the military and in civilian life. Is that fair?
It is. I think it definitely is. And it's more pervasive in politics than anything else. There are no leaders in politics now. There are absolutely no leaders. It's the biggest void. If you asked everybody to vote for the best person you think is the best leader, and then you ask them, why are they the best leader? They'll default to every one of their political platforms. That's not what leadership is about. It's not what leadership isn't about the goal, right? It's about the process, as you just said a moment ago. I could get people, to follow me into oncoming traffic if I have them believing in what I'm saying and how I'm doing it. It doesn't matter the result, right? That, and I'm not suggesting that is what you should try to do, obviously, but what I'm saying here is that that's what leadership isn't about, the end state of where you're trying to go. It's about getting people to go there with you. And nobody is doing that in the political realm right now. We are, as we talked about earlier, it's, if you're not with me, you're against me, and people are blindly following things that they shouldn't. I have always said repeatedly, I will vote for the best leader. I will follow the best leader. Leadership is as easy as American Idol, Bruce. In the first 3 seconds on American Idol, they open their mouths, if they can sing. If it takes you longer than 3 seconds, they shouldn't be invited to the next phase or next stage or whatever it is. It's the same thing with leadership. Leaders pop out immediately. You see them, you know them, you want to follow them. They draw you to them. It's that simple. And the same way, the people who aren't leaders, from the moment they open their mouth, you go, okay, that dude's an a-hole, right? Like it resonates. And so leadership should be that easy to spot. And if it's not, then you need to look somewhere else.
Okay. There we go. Mark on leadership. So that's good. All right. And then, so we got leaders over here and then the a-holes over here.
Yeah.
There are a category of people that aren't a-holes, but may not be good leaders. Is that also fair?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. There.
Not everybody has to. And here's the thing, Bruce, and this is, remember, there are levels of leadership. Not everybody.
Absolutely. That's what I was. This is the nuances.
Back to what I was talking about on my deployment. Like, I was a leader in my realm with the SF guys, but they were the lead dog pulling the sled. My job was just to, be a leader at the people who are working for me.
Right. And I'm with you. So it's just like we talked about on the football team.
Yes.
Just do your job. And even by just doing your job at the very highest level that you can do your job, whatever that may be, you are impacting those around you.
If you
whether
get
you
called,
actually talk to them or whatever.
If you're the up back on the punt, right? All you got to do is block that one dude. You only get out on the field 4 times a game. Don't miss your block, dude. That's it. Just don't miss it. Like, it's that simple.
and it's a win. Good job and congratulations. So, okay, I know you've got some stuff tonight. I wanted to just let's see. Here you are at this point in your life. You've been through a lot, and career's still taking off. You got a great podcast, all those kind of things. So, what are your kind of future dreams? Where's Mark going from here? All right. I mean, where are you thinking about going? And what kind of things give you hope now as you're seeing out? So we kind of critique society just a little bit here too, but like what energizes you and gives you hope, and where are you planning? Where's your ship sailing in the future?
Interesting question. I mean, I'm so focused on my career, my kids at this point, but I will say this much. The one thing I know, and the one thing that gives me the most silent joy that you never hear me like boast about a lot, I just want to impact people at the ground level. Throughout my entire military experience, I've always been best where the rubber meets the road. I've always worked best with the people down there. I've always led the best from the front in those situations. It's part of the reason why I survived my first deployment, because it was just thrown in there and Mark, go do this. Okay, guys, let's go. And whether I'm faking it till I make it and I'm acting like I know what I'm doing, but I really don't.
Sure.
Part of it is where the rubber meets the road, and where the people are is where I can have the greatest impact. And that's what I want to continue to do. You know, I've learned so much about relationships and so much about how to connect with people. And ultimately, you know, I want to be able to be a net positive and a plus in people's lives, wherever it is, whatever organization that's in, whether it's the military, whether it's nonprofit world and veterans work, whether it is, you know, even in my civilian job in radio and television, everything else, man. I don't ever let somebody work with me without knowing that they're doing a good job, that I appreciate the work that they're doing, and that, you know, and if you're not, by the way, I'll never tell you. I'll do that whole special forces thing where I'll just scoot right around you. You'll never hear, you'll never say a word otherwise. But the people that I work with every day, hey, that's a great job, man. I can't do this without you. You know, I appreciate everything you do, you know, and connect with people at that level, because, you know, we talk so much about, you know, trying to bring people together. It's really not that hard to do if you do the little things right. And again, I can't affect things on a large scale because I'm just one dude. You know, and at no point in time I don't know that if anybody would ever give me enough authority to affect things on a grand scale. Lord help us. But you know, again, just my part of the pie, whatever it is, whether it's in the radio and TV world, whether it's in MVP, whether it's in the military, my part of the pie is to affect people in a positive way. Say thank you, download leadership information, you know, get somebody in contact with an organization that can help them find a job, whatever it may be. Just be the net positive. When people pick up the phone and call me and ask, Mark, I need your help with this, I got you. I got you. And that, you know, that sort of connection to people matters. And that's all I really want to try to do going forward. If I can impact people and make their lives a little bit better, that's where I get a lot of joy from, for me. And most of all, you know, obviously with my kids, right? Like being a good dad and watching them grow, and seeing how they are maturing a little bit. Look, my twins are only 7, but you know, every day, you know this, obviously your kids are old, but you see them grow up and you watch the steps that they take, and you wonder if you're doing a good job every damn day as a parent. And I don't know if you ever get to a point where it's like, damn, I did do, I mean, your son, yes, hey, I did pretty good. Right. But nonetheless, it's like, you always wonder if you're doing a good job. And I hope that I am. And a lot of the decisions I make, in the back of my mind, is that conscious decision. Would my kids be proud of dad for what he did today? Would my kids be proud of the actions and the things that I said and the things that I chose? And that doesn't mean I always get it right. Not by I am fallible like everybody else. I mean, look, remember that a-hole group before? I've been the a-hole. Okay. It's not, it happens to everybody. I'm not saying everybody has to be perfect here, but you know, I think the conscious choice to impact people in a positive way is something that we all need to take a little bit more time to do. And I think at the core of that, again, is empathy.
Yeah, no, it's what we talk all the time. Just smile a little bit more, be kind in all interactions. You know, you don't have to be be a dickhead to anybody. And because the other thing we've learned too, and just, you know, being in, and I do want to give you an opportunity if there's anything more about MVP you want to say that we haven't talked about, because we kind of jumped over that a little bit, but you never really know what other people are going through. Like, you know, if you're at the studio after that second deployment and you're kind of going off or whatever, I don't know exactly what you've been through. You know what I mean? You and I maybe have never talked about that. And so it's like giving people the benefit of the doubt just a little bit, and leading with kindness instead of judgment. And as you said, empathy is a great way to put it. Just having a little bit of presence for what they might have been through and holding space for them a little bit and trying to lead them out of that if you can. So, okay. Well, let me open that then. Anything else you want to say about MVP? I know you got involved.
No, I tell you what, here's the thing. Okay. And the best part about it is I get to work with vets and pro athletes at the ground level, right? Like this is very ground level stuff for me,
Exactly.
getting a sweat on, sitting down and having a conversation with them, and offering them help and just letting them speak whatever's on their mind. Because I start my huddle the same way every single week. How's your week been? What's going on? Like, it's crazy how that little question, how you doing? Everything good on your end? Talk to me. Like that little part of it, sometimes can open up a floodgate of emotions with certain people. And if you don't ask it, it's almost like, I know me, like sometimes if I'm not directly asked about something that's troubling me, I won't directly respond about what's troubling me. Even at that, if I am directly asked, I'll blow it. I'm fine. Everything's good. Like stubborn. So it's important for me to at least ask that question, because I think genuinely, people want to be asked if they're troubled by something, what's going on, so that they feel okay responding. And, that's the great part about it. The great part about it is connecting with people, being able just to put your arm around them and tell them it's okay. And sometimes laugh with them. I mean, you've been to huddles before, just sometimes something happens that's irreverent and everybody starts laughing and you're just like, everybody gets it. Everybody gets it. And in a place where, I keep going back to that word, and I apologize to the audience, but empathy reigns supreme, because it's not necessarily about what you're going through, or even what I went through. It's just about, I understand. And I haven't been through the same exact thing, but I understand, and I'm here, and you're not alone. And those are sentiments that are super important. And as long as we're sharing those sentiments on a routine basis at MVP, guess what? We're doing okay. And that's what the organization provides on a weekly basis.
There's no doubt. Yeah. And even last night was a great example that we really got into a conversation about vulnerability and the power of vulnerability, because as we see our own stuff and then being able to share that with others opens them up to sharing their stuff. And then we can kind of work together in those kind of pieces. So we had a really powerful conversation, led brilliantly by Brandy. So we're grateful for her too. So, she's really good. So yeah, we're interviewing. We're going to have some time with her before we leave. So, okay, then we make a donation to our guest's favorite charity every week. So now, not uncoincidentally, a lot of our MVP folks pick MVP, but they don't have to. We've had a couple do some other military related. So would you have a favorite charity that you would like us to make that donation to on behalf in your name this week?
Oh, wow. I mean, I could tell you one that's sticking out in my head just because it was a tragedy. A girl I went to high school with, and I got to get you the information on it. But a girl I went to high school with, her husband is a firefighter in Long Island, was for 23 years, collapsed and passed away. They had two small children. And there is a donation, a scholarship fund in his name at the firefighters, at their local fire station, that they do for all firefighters who have passed on with kids. So, just because I've known her so well for so many years, we were good friends.
All right. We'd be proud to do that. So that'll be in the show notes below. Mark, you'll get me all that info before that. And then we'll do a couple $1,000 donated to that. Just each week we try to do something for the folks. So we're glad to do that. Okay. Then last, just any other, one, where can people find you or follow you or do any of that kind of stuff? What can we say about
all
that?
my social media at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno, Instagram, Twitter. I just got a TikTok. I don't know why. It's really stupid. It's way above my pay grade. I can't figure out how kids do it. And same thing on Facebook. You'll find me under Mark Zinno. As well, check out hazardground.com. That's the website for the podcast. Subscribe and like. It's available wherever you get podcasts. Leave an Apple review as well. But hazardground.com. All the episodes are right there on the website. But again, you can subscribe elsewhere as well to listen to the Hazard Ground each week and just hear some of the amazing stories that people have to tell. In fact, we did an interview today with this guy who's in the Marines for 30 years. And, it's so great to connect with people and hear their story. And, you'd be surprised how many people are hesitant to tell their story. But once the juices get flowing, it's a great conversation, much like this is here.
Yeah. No, that's, it's so true. And I won't mention any names or locations, but one of the huddles I did go to, and that person was from there, and we were doing it, and like just jitter, beforehand, before I went on, I just go, man, are you okay? Like this, we don't have to. And he goes, I've never told my story. I've never fully sat down like in an hour and articulated this whole thing. And I go, look, we can take a break anytime you want. But it took about a half hour, 45 minutes, but about that mark, all of a sudden it was just like, whoa.
Yep.
And it just took off like a powerful storyteller. And it's like, and we got done, and he gave me the biggest hug. He just said, oh my God, I'm glad that's over. And two, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And three, I feel so great having been able to put words to these things I've been holding on to for so long. So the power of storytelling, both for the listener and for the speaker, is just really, it's amazing. And being in this role at times has just been kind of really humbling to be able to be a part of that and listen to people's stories. So I can't imagine all the things that you've heard as well in your journey. So kudos to that. We look forward to we'll be watching for the 300th. So if you want to send us a note or whatever, we'll be glad to give a plug for the show.
Absolutely. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We'd love to do that. Okay. So check him out on all the socials and all that. And then any final thoughts or words of inspiration you want to leave our group with, and or if a vet's sitting around, and or anybody that may be struggling with some stuff, anything that you'd want to encourage them to do or think about?
Sure. I think you're never wrong for taking stock in where you are and who you are. Therapy certainly helps that. And even if you have an inkling that something isn't right, just do it. Just go get it checked out for the peace of mind that that nothing is wrong. And that is the first step. But remember, you don't have to follow anybody else's path. You're your own path, but there is a destination, at least from a healing standpoint, that you can get to. And I highly encourage people to just start talking to friends about it, talk to other military members about it, talk to other professional athletes, whatever it may be, talk to somebody who's had a similar experience and just ask them what they think. Because, that first step is the hardest one to take, but once you do, it makes it so much easier. And to all my leaders out there, just remember, as Simon Sinek says, the price of leadership is self-sacrifice. Don't be afraid to self-sacrifice for others, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's what they will follow. They will see your sacrifice and not only match it, they'll multiply it.
Yeah. So with sacrifice and vulnerability, I mean, really there's strength and courage within that. Absolutely. And it is inspiring leader to others. So, all right, Mark, I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story with us. We're excited for the 300 podcast, and I'll send you a link to this when we get it out. And then if you will send me for the firefighter, we will take care of that, and we'll do that next week when we get all the information. So wish you the very best. And again, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Bruce, humbled. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, man. Take care. Talk to you later.
Take care.
All right. So let's see. Bruce Kittle here. I am at the Manu. Is that right?
Team Manu. Yep.
Team Manu training facility in Atlanta, Georgia, with Brandy. And I know, is it Powell or?
Yeah, it's both. Powell, Hester.
Powell, Hester. Okay. Powell, Hester. Should we do that? If we post it, Powell, Hester?
Yeah.
2 names? Okay. Is it hyphened or no?
It's not.
Okay. Powell, Hester, good enough. We'll try to get it right. All right. Anyway, so we're going to record a podcast here in just a second. So we're grateful that she's here with us. Exactly. I know. So we've got a lot of help. So we'll just kind of zip through this and not make it too difficult. So anyway, so we're going live in 3, 2, 1. Action! All right. Hey guys, Bruce Kittle here. I'm at the Team Manu training facility in Atlanta, Georgia. I am with Brandy, Hester, Powell. Did I get it right? Okay.
Perfect.
Anyway, so Brandy was our host this week. You're going to see a couple pictures in that. I went to the Wednesday night huddle this week. I'm here obviously because the Niners play the Falcons this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Falcons fan? Kind of.
I'm a Broncos fan.
Broncos fan.
Yes.
Okay. Well, they beat us
I
earlier.
love the Falcons too. You can.
Okay. Anyway, so but anyway, we're just tapping into kind of our MVP community here, and so we've already had Mark on, and so we've heard that story a little bit about his journey in that, and this one's just a little bit different. It's just a little bit different because we do a lot of veterans. but we haven't done as many athletes. And so this is an opportunity for us to touch into a little bit. Brandy was our host Wednesday night, did a great job facilitating, did a great workout. So that was really good. And so it was plenty for me, and I was glad to participate in that. So Brandy, thank you so much for sitting in with us. All right.
Of course, thank you.
And just to get a little historical, the space that we're in, I think the camera picks up a few things, but we're sitting in rows of hanging heavy bags.
Yes.
So this is very much a working gym. So kind of the things that you described. So maybe we'll start that. What's your history with this gym and Team Manu?
Team Manu. So Manu is a 7-time world champion.
Okay.
And he was one of the first trainers that I worked with in my fighting career. I actually laid down the floors before it became Team Manu.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It was called Madhouse before. So that was really cool to kind of watch Manu come in. And as he came in, I started training with him, and it was completely different. And I heard all the stories about him, but to train with him was really, really cool.
Okay.
You could feel that energy.
Hey, I'm going to take 1 second time out, just because it's on the inside. Yeah, I know she's going to give me a hard time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so action again. So anyway, all right. And so just like not with too many dates, but like how long ago would that have been?
God, oh my gosh. Let's see. I started training in Muay Thai in 2008, so it was probably around. No, I know exactly. It was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of history here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So okay. Well, I'm sure we'll wind back to the training stage. So then, just as a rough, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Denver, Colorado.
Okay, so we were just talking before. She's a Broncos fan, kind of supports the Falcons, but really Broncos fan. Yeah. So she's already given me shit about losing to the Broncos early in the season. So thank you very much, Niners. Anyway, enough of that. Okay, so and then how many siblings and all that kind of stuff? Big house, small house, or?
We had a pretty decent house, like a middle class family house.
Oh, I meant number of siblings.
Siblings,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I have one sister and 2 brothers.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And where do you fall in that line?
I'm the baby.
Okay. A lot being revealed there.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And then just, I guess, I'm always curious. Do you have any kind of dominant lessons that, as you look back on, like, what kind of things there shaped you, either value-wise or work ethic or anything like that? I mean, was there any kind of core lessons that you took from your kind of immediate family?
Yeah, I think all of my core lessons came from my family. When I was growing up in Montbello, which is in Denver, everybody knows everybody, which was really cool. And my best friends were my family members for the most part, you know. So growing up, I had an uncle that was really involved in us. I mean, every day he was playing with us, right? So he was like the hero of the neighborhood. And he taught me I could do 50 push-ups in a minute at like 8 years old.
Right.
And he taught me how to run and how not to give up. And when your body's telling you to quit. My mom, she actually started me running competitively at 2.5 years old.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, Mom, there's no way I was 2.5 years old. And she's like, okay, well, look at your trophy and look at the year, 1985. I was born in 1983.
Right.
So clearly. And it was a 5K. So I can remember wanting to quit. I remember crying. I remember looking at other kids my age in strollers. And my mom is literally pulling me by my hair. Let's go. And I'm trying to keep up with my mom, right? And
that's funny.
Yeah, but I look back on that memory all the time about what the heart will do for you. Because at that age, I just want to be with my mom. Right. So I'm not going to quit. And I remember getting towards that finish line and everybody's cheering and then my chest pokes out and you're like, shh, I got this, you know? Right. So there's a lot of lessons that I learned from that experience growing up that really stay with me today. And then playing with my uncle, that holds with me all the time.
Was that Uncle Mom's side or Dad's?
My mom's side.
Okay,
my
so
Uncle
her brother?
Fernando. Yeah, her brother, yeah. And they used to run all the time together, 10 miles every day. So there's a lesson that he gave my mom, which is Pacasabes. And she and I kind of joke about that all the time. And it basically means, what do you know?
Okay, and what tradition is that out of?
Mexican.
Mexican?
Yeah,
okay.
Mexican-American. My mom is Mexican-American. And
okay.
I think that might be his thing, though.
Okay. And what's it mean?
Now you know.
Now you know.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to, that good old, like, trash talk.
Yeah.
You tell me I can't do something and I'm like, okay, all right. And then when I do it, it's pacasabes. Now you know. And in my sport, when you're on the ground, it's like
you would whisper that occasionally.
Right. To myself,
Right.
I give my opponents the utmost respect. So it's not like I want to talk trash or
anything,
right. But to myself, it's like, now you know.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you said that. I wasn't really thinking about externally to a third party.
Right.
I was thinking internally to myself. Like when I would say that, it's now I know.
Exactly.
Like I know about my limitations. I know about my strengths. I know about my power.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? So it's kind of empowering to me because I can say that and I accomplish this and I take one more step on my journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's not important what somebody else knows about you.
Yeah.
It's what's important is what you know about yourself.
Okay. So we've stamped again with the seal of approval, the belief in child development, having one or two or three or more people in your life that are positive role models and spend time with you and share values and characteristics makes a lasting difference.
It does.
Yeah. And I know because we were talking before, I think Wednesday night at the Huddle, you were talking, your mom ran a 5K with you up some mountain around here or something like that. Or anyway, so she's a runner and kind of instilled physicality, connection to your body, awareness of body, and that kind of mind, body, spirit connection to some extent, it sounds like. And as did your uncle. I mean, if they're all runners, because a lot of kids don't grow up in a house where parents are doing a bunch of that stuff. And
absolutely.
So you got to like find it on your own. So to normalize it that way, and it's just a way of being in relationship with your body. And then obviously as an athlete, you've learned to listen to that body and kind of understand it and relate to the world in that way. So I always try to explain that it's, personally for me too, athletics was always really big. My folks weren't athletes at all, so I kind of just accidentally fell into it. But like, it's hard for me to experience life without connection through my body.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? The things that I do, whether it's working out or hiking or whatever it is, and even just in relating with people that way. So it's a little bit different. So, okay. So Denver, Colorado, and then eventually graduate high school?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, figured, okay. And then what was the journey then? Where'd you go from high school? And
From high school. So high school was interesting. I was a swimmer in high school and super competitive in that. And but I was really trying to find myself because I was like, oh shit, what do I do?
Yeah, right. It's coming, right? Yeah, great train's over.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to do swimming in college, but by that time I was a little burnt out and everything. And but I knew I wanted to stay close to home, and so I went to a community college. Picked up theater for a little bit.
Oh wow!
Yeah, trying to really see what I could do. Stepped away from sports for a little bit and tried to, see how far I could take the singing career and things like that. And that's what brought me to Georgia.
Okay. Singing and acting?
Yeah. Some more singing.
Okay. So in a band or doing?
No, I had an opportunity to write with a songwriting with a music producer that was underneath Jermaine Dupree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And roughly the year for the move would have been just
2005, I think.
Okay. So Atlanta in 2005. And so here you are, still here.
Yeah.
Was that 15, 16, 17 years later?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Time flies.
It does fly.
Okay. And so at this point, when you move here for the music industry, you haven't been involved in fighting?
No, I wasn't involved in fighting.
Okay. Well, so you moved to Atlanta, you're working in songwriting. And then when did you start laying the floors here? You said 2008.
Yeah.
So something happens between 2005 and 2008 where you put some gloves on?
Right. So I stepped away from the entertainment world. I kind of realized this is not for me, and I went back into swimming and working around pools and everything like that. And since I was always play fighting, that's what I call it. I don't think people enjoyed play fighting with me.
Right. Yeah.
As a kid, I got in trouble every day for fighting the boys. I'm just having fun.
Right.
But somebody would go tell my mom, and my mom gets on, what is wrong with you? Go lay down,
right.
type thing. So I'm here in Georgia. I'm working with pools. I'm around all these high school kids, and they want to be football players, and they would pick on me.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm like, yeah, okay. So we start play fighting. Right, yeah, come on,
baby.
And I would act like I'm sitting down, I'm relaxing, and they would try to beat me up, just again, playing, having fun. And I end up beating up all these, high school boys or whatever. And we're around the pool and we're supposed to be working.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And I'm like, I better chill out. Let me get in this pool and swim. I get in the pool and I'm working with seniors and stuff. And I'm like, man, I hope they don't get on to me. And one of the seniors, he kind of taps me and he goes, you should meet my son. And I'm thinking he's trying to hook me up with his son. I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. And he's like, no, seriously, he owns a gym. He owns a fight gym. I see what you could do. You should meet him. So for about 6 months, I'm like, yeah, no, thank you.
Right.
But I decided to check it out. And
so, and I just have to kind of interrupt. Right beforehand, we were talking with, I'm sorry, was her name Whitney?
Whitney.
Yeah. Anyway, so a new, younger, upcoming fighter, it sounded like. I was kind of getting set up. And then she said something about what a coincidence that you were here. Of course, and like in my mind, and I heard you kind of say the same thing. Not really, like the universe and the energy that's presented, so if you're kind of open to it, it constantly is sending us some messages.
Isn't that cool?
And if we just kind of can get out of our own way sometimes and just kind of follow the path, it's actually laid out a little bit for us. So, but anyway, here you are at this other job in the pool.
Yes.
And there's a senior there and, just accidentally kind of, hey, go check it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But anyway, it's pretty cool how these tiny little bumps can so deeply influence our lives.
Absolutely.
If we're just kind of in our own flow and following our energy and trusting the universe just a little bit, how open those things can kind of be for us. So, okay. So eventually though, 6 months go by.
6 months goes by. I go and meet his son, who is the owner of X3 Sports.
Okay.
And as soon as I meet him, I'm like, oh, I get it. Because he's a mixed kid. We have the kind of same energy. He's looking me up and down. I'm looking him up and down. And I'm like, yeah, I see why his dad wanted me to meet him.
This might be a good fit. Yeah.
And within 30 seconds, we're like cussing each other out. Right. And he went to go get me a jump rope. I'm like, I don't need you to get my jump rope. He's like, I'm trying to be nice. So you're going to go get my jump rope 6 months from now? I said, no. I said, all right then.
Well, don't set me up.
He drops it and calls me a name or whatever. I'm like, perfect fit, know? And we start training and I'm loving it. I'm loving it and hating it because I'm a swimmer. I'm a runner. It's not supposed to be hard.
Right.
He's kicking my ass, and I'm just kicking a bag in the bag.
Yeah.
And he knows how to push my buttons. He's whispering in my ear and, and I'm motivated by like that. Some people you have to coach and be nice.
Yeah. Some
people you have to piss off. Because my mom started me running at 2.5 years old.
And you've been angry ever since?
Exactly. But it's like, that worked for me.
Yeah.
And when he pulls me into the ring and, I get my ass whooped, over the course of probably 2 years. And I keep coming back.
Okay, why? Because that's,
Well, I'm one of the people, for sure, if I don't get it, it bothers me.
Okay. So you let's say you're not a 5-star at this point when you first start. You're kind of struggling with learning the kicks, learning the whole modality. Because I started Aikido, and just we travel so much, I'm not around enough to kind of do it. So I kind of got away from it again. But like starting it with brand new, and I'm in there with these high school and college kids, and then some other folks, in these sessions, and it's just like it is totally different. And Aikido is more about, it's kind of circular, using the energy of the party against them and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, really enjoyed all that. But it was at, my age, I'm 63. So I started this, and to do something brand new physically, like all the movements and trying to learn all this stuff was really, really challenging, but it's really fun. But kind of on that piece where you kind of want to at least be able to go through. So they have 20 different kind of modalities that you start with and all that kind of thing. And kind of got through 10 and I'm I'd have to start over again. But anyway, so great. So for 2 years, you just keep coming back, putting the gloves on and keep hitting the bag.
Keep coming back, hitting the bag. Of course, I'm being introduced to sparring where you're actually, getting hit, trying to hit somebody. And, I loved it. I think right away I had that immediate connection where I felt like family. He looked like me, we had the same persona. He would, we would check up on each other, so I had that.
Yep.
So obviously I felt safe, maybe didn't realize it, but I felt safe to really see what I could do.
Yeah.
And,
To step into your own vulnerability and not being a star,
exactly.
not being great at it,
Yeah.
and being willing to kind of put yourself out there, even though you knew it was going to be challenging and probably had some rough steps ahead.
I did, yeah.
So, okay.
And I really, without knowing what I was doing, I felt like I tapped into myself. I could do this.
Okay.
I can do this, but it's I just have to show I can do this.
Like it ain't tomorrow. Like it's gonna be
right. Maybe it will be tomorrow. I'm feeling good about myself. You know how we are.
Yeah, right.
Your ass
Next month, I'm all set. Damn.
Right. Damn. I didn't know you could move like that. You're okay. Yeah,
all right. So keep coming back and seeing some progression, obviously, because otherwise it would get pretty old. So you're kind of learning, getting better, doing all that kind of stuff, and then eventually you get to a first fight.
Yeah, I think I had one or two like gym fights where they're in the gym. Sometimes Madu does them here, and I did really well. So
okay.
Yeah, and my coach always told me that. He was like, "Wait until you get in the ring, and you're like, oh yeah, this stuff, it works."
Works, yeah, right.
So yeah, I definitely had that experience. But I had this feeling that I could be myself, so I could turn off everything that I've been wanting to turn off, not talk, and not think,
right,
and just do. Let my heart do everything. Let my heart lead the jab, lead the cross.
Yeah.
I knew where she was going before she went there.
Yeah.
I knew she was going to then come back to the right before she went to the right. And now I can make her come forward if I wanted to come forward because she's frustrated. Oh, I feel the frustration. Oh,
yeah, right.
Oh, you're a little sad. Oh, and between all that, I could just
kind of read it, feel it,
and deliver all these, punches and stuff. So
right.
I fell in love with it.
Yeah. Let me just go back to being yourself, though.
Yeah.
So I'm just, so obviously white Caucasian male, different generation, all that kind of, so that, our life experience is probably very different in certain ways.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about learning how to be yourself or finding the freedom and kind of in a way the approval, go ahead, step into this. I'm just kind of imagining though that, there's a lot of layers to you stepping into being yourself.
Yeah.
So what were the things about being in the ring and being in the setting? I know you talked about Manu and kind of ethnicity and those kind of connections and all that kind of stuff, but what were the other things that you were trying to set down and, in order to kind of step into that freedom?
Yeah. So there was a lot of sadness after about 10 years old or maybe 8 years old in my childhood. My Uncle Fernando that I spoke about, he died unexpectedly.
Oh, okay.
And that's one thing that it actually brought me to MVP. We will talk about that later. And my parents got a divorce. Suddenly I was with my dad, not with my mom, and I gave up, and I just didn't talk. I didn't want to do schoolwork. I didn't want to do anything, but I did, I felt like I did what was expected of me.
Right.
I didn't eat, and growing up, you kind of learn how to be.
Just a second.
Yeah.
I just want to double check. My little light went off.
Oh, okay.
Just want to make sure I'm.
¿Qué quieres, mamá? Oh, it's a good time for me to.
Okay. All right. So we took a little break.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, that's all good. Anyway, and so we were talking a little bit about how getting into fighting and getting in the ring gave you kind of authority, permission, freedom,
right,
to start setting some pieces of yourself down that you had picked up maybe because society, school, other people had kind of said this is who you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to act. And you were dropping some of those things off. And then you were also discovering more fully who you were and what it looked like to completely be Brandy. So maybe what things were you, and you were trying to tell us that when we got kind of delayed there, but so what things were you letting go of? And then what things might have you stepped into that fighting helped bring you into?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I think I was letting go of, having to show up and smile and talk and be nice and what that means. And
like you are right now with me.
No, it's good, but it's, be a lady, as my mom would say. Don't do this, don't do that. And
that's what I was thinking about, all the layers that our society and culture put on women.
Yes.
Kind of like you're supposed to fit into this box.
Yeah.
If you don't, like something's kind of wrong with you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, and you spend so much energy and time trying to fit in that box, you realize, like, I never belonged in that box anyway. You know, none of that was me. So, okay.
Exactly.
So you're letting go of some of those societal norms around women's behavior and what it means and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Other things or?
Yeah, that was, I mean, my mom used to always tell me too, like I was always moving, you know, always wanted to, and, you know, in the ring, that's perfect. You know, I can continue to move. And like I tell everybody, there's a few sports where you can't get tired, you know, swimming and fighting. If you're swimming and you get tired, you could drown. Right. If you're fighting and you get tired, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get knocked down. Bro, something's going to happen. Somebody's going to give you a nap, basically. Yeah. So, you know, I love that I could continue to move and, you know, move your body kind of freely. And so, I was like, man, I really feel like myself. Like I'm really involved. I'm really something beautiful. I felt beautiful. Yeah. You know. So I have a friend, and he's more of an endurance runner type trainer. But his motto is self-discovery through endurance sports. Yeah. And it's this idea that, you know, by testing yourself and trying to, whether it's a marathon or a triathlon or whatever, that by going through the training and putting yourself to those tests, yes, it's about the physical outcomes that you go through, but the process in and of itself helps kind of purify ourselves and gives us a clear view of who we are as human beings. Absolutely. And so, I mean, I certainly found that within kind of the context of working out and doing all that. So it sounds like some of the process that you were going through as well. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're refining what it means to be Brandy. Yeah. And finding, it feels like, more greater comfort in your own skin. Yeah. And self-identity. Mm-hmm. So the 4 stages of the self: know thyself, right? And then heal thyself, be thyself. Yes. Or share thyself. Yes. You can bring, just bring. Come here, you did it. We had a fall down. So yes, we had a fall down. A roll over, maybe more. A roll. She's learned to roll. Okay. So didn't want to roll by herself. Okay. Yes. That looks so much more comfortable. Yes. Okay. Okay. I feel better already. Okay. Okay. So, nope, not. All right. So then you're doing all that, and then get better in the ring, start to fight, and then tell us then what are the next steps? What happens with your career then? So from there, I took a break. I have 3 children. So I had my first daughter in 2010. Okay. And I come back and I fight for 2 years. And I think that was the first time I was on TV with the NFC, and traveled a little bit and got to see, you know, what that's like. Right. And, you know, that's not easy. Yeah. You know, I think people watch NFL players travel all the time. Baseball players travel all the time. They're away from their families, and, you know, nobody takes in consideration, you don't all the time want to be there. You want to be home. And so I got to experience that a little bit. And after those 2 years, I had my second child, and got back into it. And that's when I was really loving the sport. Okay. You know, that's when I really started to appreciate being able to fight and train. And so this would be 215 on, or? Yeah, 215 on. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So 215 on. So and like, how often are you fighting? And obviously by this time you've gone professional, so you're fighting for money, or how does that work within? The travel, when you travel, you know, you get paid for the expenses and everything like that. My last fight was against one of the better fighters, which was last 2021 March. Okay. Yeah, and it was a good fight. That was one of the most challenging fights that I ever had. But okay. Yeah. Well, and then are you able to make a living doing it, or how? No, I'm not making a living doing it even now. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I want to get back into it. Okay. I felt like I was cut short. I wanted to go into a contract where you're actually making money and can possibly make a living doing it. Right. But no, I'm definitely not there yet. Okay. So, and then
Baby 3.
Baby 3. Baby 3.
Okay, yeah. All right. And then, so a little bit of break in here. And then, so then let's kind of talk a little bit about, at some point in there, when did you get involved with MVP then? So how did MVP come into your life?
I was training with Manu 2018, and I was actually having a really hard time as far as trying to train and trying to have a living, you know, and raise children. I was having a really hard time in a relationship that I was involved in. And Manu said, hey, you know, I want you to come to the gym and meet somebody. And I'm like, okay, you know, your coach tells you to do something, you don't question it. So I came to the gym, and at that time, MVP was being ran by John Sterling. And I met John, and I was here with a couple of other fighters. I think it was John and different John. And he's one of the fighters that Manu trains, Ty, a different fighter. And we all just came and listened to Corey. We all just kind of listened to what John had to say, and he said he needed our help if we had time to help train veterans. And, you know, and all of a sudden I could just see myself here and seeing, oh, okay, I can give back and do something great with veterans. My dad was a veteran. My brother's a veteran, both of my brothers actually. And this is great. Yeah, I'm down. And
so what year would that have been then?
That would have been 2018. It was probably around October, around the same time. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then now, is that when MVP Atlanta started, or was it already going?
No, it just started.
That was kind of the takeoff right there.
Right. I think they did like a few things before.
Yeah.
But they're moving it to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So yeah, it hadn't really officially kicked off yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so then, how's it go with MVP? Like, what's your role and like?
So I'm coming in as a trainer, and I pretty much lead the workout for the hour and sit down and enjoy the huddle.
Okay.
And that's where I learned that, I'm not really giving back. I'm getting ready to get educated and connected. And like my son says, my bucket got filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny, you go in to try to think you're doing something for somebody else, or even with good intentions, and then often through the process, because of the people you meet, the opportunities you have, the things you learn, you end up, like you said, your bucket's a lot fuller when you leave than it was before. So, well then, what are some of the things you like about MVP, and how's it helped you? And I mean, and you referenced, I think we were talking about your uncle before.
Right.
So with his death, I mean, and then I know, and it sounded like as you're getting into MVP, I mean, finances a little bit because you're trying to make a living and box or fight.
Wow.
Got kids and dealing with relationship stuff and all that kind of stuff. So how does MVP help level things out and give you some strength?
I kind of love the way you set up that question, because it's like you must have read my bio or been around, talked to my mom or something, because when you brought up my uncle, I usually don't share, but he died by suicide.
Okay.
And when they talked about this could be, suicide prevention, I was like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to be there.
Right.
Because you're talking about being probably one of the biggest influence of my life that I lost suddenly.
Yeah.
And at that age, I didn't understand, and I'm not sure I still understand at this age, but that connected me with MVP right away. And I was actually in a space to where I was contemplating doing something drastic to change my life. Maybe not suicide, maybe fighting to the point to where I don't care, I go to jail, maybe, just not thinking rationally.
Right.
And I remember when I got that call from John Sterling, I had pretty much made it up in my mind. When I walk out this door, I was leaving work, I'm going to do something drastic.
Just to change.
Just to change it, because I'm tired. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be, I'm a fighter. I'm not. So whatever it takes to make this stop is what it's going to do. And I was standing there making up my mind. And I was getting ready I remember the doors open, and I'm getting ready to step out into this new person that I'm going to become. And my phone rings. So I step back inside, And I answered, I'm like, oh, that's John. Oh yeah, man, I've been waiting to hear back from him. And I answer it and I'm like, hello? He says, hey, Brandy, when we met, you really made an impression. He starts telling me about myself. I could tell you're this and I could tell you this and that. And he even talks about my culture. I'm like, what? And he said, you're one of the first calls I made today. What? I had all these people to call, but I called you first. What? Oh, I don't need to become this person. John is telling me that I'm good enough. Not only am I good enough, I can make a difference just the way that I am.
Yeah.
So that's before our first huddle.
So, universe rises up again.
It does.
Just, if we create opportunities a little bit and just pay attention. So John calls, invites you in, and so then kind of you've been involved since then.
Yeah.
And then what did you experience in the huddle? So obviously, and for folks, almost all of our audience, pretty familiar with it by now. So kind of a 30-minute, people come early, connect, and then there's usually around a 30-minute workout, some kind, and then they sit down and huddle. And it's basically kind of peer-to-peer, I don't know if counseling is quite the right word, but peer-to-peer consultation and talking and just sharing obstacles and or wins and losses that some of the groups talk about and all that kind of stuff. So how did that, you said, eventually you felt like your bucket got filled up. How did MVP and being part of the huddle, how did that nurture you during that time when you were going through all those things?
Really, I learned so much about what veterans go through, what other people are going through, and quit focusing on myself so much.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to trust the process, and I think a lot of times we just don't want to go through the process. We don't want to transition. We just want it to be over. Yeah. And we want the outcome that we think we want, period. Especially if you're me and you're really hard-headed and it's going to be this way. And, so I learned to shut up and listen and be there for somebody else. If only thing you could do is listen. I learned to do that.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all we can do, but sometimes that's enough.
Yeah.
A lot of times it is. So I want to just hit on two things so we talk a lot about mindset, and goal setting and visualizations and affirmations and all that kind of stuff here. But just the one thing about it is kind of letting go of the outcome that you want. I mean, it's good to have like a North Star or like a direction that you're heading. You want to be a great fighter, whatever that is, but kind of letting go of some of those outcomes and then buying into a process and then not having to control everything. Control what you can control, but then kind of trust, if you've got a good process and have good people around you, that some things are going to take off for you.
Yeah, that's major.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you hang in there with the huddle. And so you've been going to Huddle pretty regularly then now for 3 years.
Yeah, we stopped a little bit for COVID, but then we went virtual and I was right there with that.
Okay.
Still leading the workouts, still getting my bucket filled every single time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So if we're thinking about mindset then, as a fighter, you had one. So you had an identity, we call them alter egos or whatever.
Right.
But so when you step in the ring, you're obviously a little bit different person than you are holding your babies.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so
absolutely.
That's okay. Here, I'll hold them. Yep. Okay. Anyway, and so tell me about the fight mindset and then just the mindset about like your world still has a lot of balls moving.
Yeah, it does.
And so tell me about life mindset too, but tell me about the ring mindset. What did you learn about preparing yourself mentally to go in and, put yourself in those situations?
So a lot of times, I hear fighters say they're nervous, they throw up, they, shake. I just say perfect because I get ready to be myself,
Yeah. So you never felt like you were fitting anything artificial on.
No.
It was actually, you could set all the bullshit of society down, all the bullshit of different jobs, all the, like the mother expect, everything.
Everything.
You can just like, here I am taking this backpack off. I'm going to set it right here. And I can step in this ring and actually be completely free to be exactly who I am.
Yeah, and be myself.
Oh, wow.
I don't have to talk to anybody unless I want to. Sometimes I talk trash in the ring.
Well, sure, yeah.
But, I can say everything that everybody, don't say that, be nice. Like, I don't want to be nice. I want to be myself,
Right.
But you can't be yourself. You can't live a life where you don't care about people's feelings. And, I get that.
Yeah.
But in the ring, you can.
Yeah.
And so that's my mindset. I always can feel myself sometimes warming up. And for me, it looks like a phoenix. That's what it looks like. Like you're shedding all this stuff.
And then.
And you get to rise. And it's not something I thought about, but that's just what I see.
Yeah.
and I could feel it. I could feel this change. I could feel my mind. I'm thinking completely different. I'm seeing completely different things in my mind, yeah. Now at the right moment, I'm gonna step in this ring and I get to be myself. And of course, you know, the ring is slippery sometimes, and that kind of brings you back to reality. Yeah, you start to feel your opponent's energy, and but I don't usually hear the audience or anything. It's just, it's what that's like.
Okay. And then, so it's felt like, you know, in Jay Glazer's book, Unbreakable, he talks about living in the gray. And so those times in our life when kind of these clouds form over and it's hard to see, you don't feel very good and you're kind of all that kind of stuff. You know, so in day-to-day life, you know, obviously there's still struggles and there's still things to cope with. So how does that mindset from the ring and or the things you've learned either in MVP or fighting, how does that carry over into day-to-day life? And then, and weave in here too, because you were one of our participants in the mindfulness class.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about how, you know, maybe that's impacted you or, you know, is a tool or a resource for you.
Yeah, so both. When we did our mindful meditation courses, I really enjoyed that because I felt like it was solely geared toward taking all the little gems that you get from the huddle and putting that in your day-to-day life. And so being able to get feedback on what I'm doing every morning as far as meditating and everything like that. You're being a little stinker. Really helped me expand on that because when I got pregnant with my third child and I was really trying to take off, it was hard.
Yeah.
It shut me down. And you talk about experiencing, you can't do anything without connecting your body to what you're doing. Yeah, now I have a baby inside of me and I want to be out there running and I want to be out there doing push-ups. And I would say, well, I could still do that. And I would go outside and I would run and I would get this major cramp and like a contraction.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And so I'll jog lightly then. And I would get that same cramp, but just not as intense. Okay, well then I'll walk. You know, so it's me having this battle with me.
Right.
Constantly.
Trying to find that line.
For 9 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, I was faced with the reality of how am I going to care for this child? It was just a constant battle.
Yeah.
And so I remember hearing about the course, you know, being able to log on from the comfort of my home, perfect, and listen to some guidance. And I had already started my mindful meditation practice with a major league, retired major league baseball player. His name is Darnell McDowell. And he was awesome. But, you know, that was about a year before I got pregnant. And I was trying to practice what I learned, but it wasn't really helping anymore. I felt like I wasn't enough. You know, what I know about it wasn't enough. And so I would log on with you all and first of all, go through a guided meditation, which was awesome because I don't have to think. I just have to follow.
Just kind of listen and breathe.
Yes.
Right.
And then,
shout out Professor McGee.
Professor McGee.
She's great, ain't she?
Oh my God. And then just listening to all of the wisdom on the call.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I don't have to know anything. I'm surrounded by people who will guide me. And I could be a mess if I want to be a mess.
We all are in our own way, so it's okay, yeah.
But I mean, on the call, I felt like we were all at peace, though.
Yeah.
You know, with our mess.
Right.
And MVP does the same thing.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, Jay Glazer kind of is like, yeah, bring your shit, own your shit.
And share your shit.
Yeah, share your shit because it's not really about all the things we get ourselves into, right? It's about what's in between your chest.
Yeah.
What's in between your rib cage is what he always says. Yeah. And that's what's going to carry us through, you know, and think about your past experiences, right? As a professional athlete, as a veteran, what got you through that hard shit, right? Because you're still here.
Yeah.
Right? So what was it?
Yeah. And then tap into that, carry that forward. And you can rely on that because what you're facing now is different than what you faced in the military or maybe fighting in the ring or whatever it was.
Right.
But there's some skill sets there and strengths that you have relied on before.
Right.
And they're still there.
Right.
And we just have to kind of maybe reshape them a little bit in order to kind of stand on them and use them today.
Yeah, even Whitney, she was talking to me and she said, yeah, I played college basketball,
yeah.
but this is different. And, I know this is going to be a little bit harder. I said, yeah, it's different, but it's the same.
Right.
Because in all of those things, you're trying to find your peace in what you're doing, and like you're saying, your buddy, or you run trying to find yourself. You're running, and I'm sure your ankle says, excuse me, I'm hurting. There's something in your shoe, by the way. Oh yeah, by the way, your left knee is a little different today. And then you finally get past all that and you get like this high, and you start to be in touch with yourself. And
yeah,
I think that's with everything, with the MVP and with being where you are today. I'm facing something completely different.
Yeah. Even
though I have 3 kids, it's completely different because I only have 2 hands. I only have 1 body.
Right.
And I'm still trying to find my peace every day with it all.
Yeah, I don't know who said it, but there's a saying, no person ever enters the same river twice. Because as you enter, the river's different because the current is flowed. And you're not the same person that you walk through. So you could walk through that same stream every day to go to wherever, but it's always different.
Yeah.
And part of, I think, for me, is trying to interpret what seems to be the same and staying curious and open-minded in a way that this experience, even though it looks the same, is actually have new lessons for me today because I'm not the same person I was. And so how I might experience that same thing could be really different and the lessons could be different. So, well, okay. Well, we've certainly pushed our luck a little bit.
Yes,
so anything either about MVP or mindset, I don't want to cut you off in any way. So I'm really grateful for you sharing your story. And and it's just tell us a little bit about then what's the plan now? Where are you trying to go?
So I have a 5-year plan. Me and Whitney were kind of talking about that. Yeah. So, I want to get back into fighting. But as I get older, I learn that's not going to be everything, I want to continue my journey with MVP. I'm actually the coordinator now. So I went from a trainer to a coordinator and I still lead the workouts and everything. But I love that I've had that opportunity to grow and see where that goes. And as MVP continues to grow, I want to be able to grow with it and be able to travel and sit in on all of the branches because it's like no matter where you go, you're with family.
That's right.
How great is that?
It's pretty cool. That's I've had that chance, and it's been really fun traveling around and sitting in on the different huddles. So it's really cool.
Want to do that. I'm looking into buying real estate so that I can have the freedom to do that as far as finances are concerned.
Yep.
Yeah.
So make money while you're not working.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep. There's no doubt. So. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, good luck with everything, and we'll look for you getting back in the ring, and we'll stay in touch with the Atlanta MVP and your success and everything. And really appreciate that. And if you go running with your mom again, make sure you let us know.
I'm trying to get her to do the Kennesaw Mountain Race with me, and she doesn't run anymore. She has learned to enjoy. And to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about, so 2 things. One, we were talking about the game. I don't know if were you able to get things together to attend the game?
No, I have not yet.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Has Mark called you back?
No, he hadn't as of this morning.
Okay.
So, but even if he does, I think I can swing an extra couple. So you could let me know. So that would be okay. Then we always do a donation. And so we're doing one for Mark, but as you took our time. So, and you can do MVP. Is there a charity or organization that you support that you would want us to support on your behalf?
Yes. The Perthes Foundation.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Perthes is a very rare disease that affects children between the ages, I've heard as young as 3. They may say 4, but it's between the ages 3 and 11 years old. And a couple months ago, my son, who races with me, so he did a suicide awareness walk, which was 21 miles, and he did the 13K, and went from there to all of a sudden he was walking really, really funny. And of course I noticed because I've watched this kid move constantly for 7 years.
Right.
And I took him to the doctor, and he was finally diagnosed with Perthes disease. And what it is when the child loses blood flow to the hip, right? And the hip can then flatten out, and it could be a chronic painful disease. And of course, these kids are usually very active, and then all of a sudden they're being very active to now they're in a wheelchair on crutches, and it brings a lot of changes. And I always think about how it's going to affect the children mentally as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
loss of mobility is kind of, when I think about fears, it's one of the few, that's because that's legit. Like there's a lot of things I can let go of, but like not being able to go for a walk or hike or climb or ride bike or swim, that's really tough. I mean, I feel for that all the time. So, all right, well then you will send us a link.
Sure. Yeah.
On exactly where and how to donate to that. And we'll be glad. So we'll make a donation for that. So that'll be great.
That would be great.
And then you can let me know about if tickets still work. I can still swing those until later tonight.
Awesome.
So we'll try to figure that out. So we'll get that done. And then we'll look for more news on the ring. And then are you on social media in any way that if people are interested in Brandy's story, how do they follow you and learn more about you?
Yeah, so I think it's Beauty. I'm not on social media much because I'm looking out for my mental health, but it's Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
And that's BEEST, and that's because I fought with killer bees.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that'll be in the show notes below, so you can send me all that stuff, and we'll hook people up there. So, all right. Thank you so much. You were very patient with me. You've been a terrific guest. Do you want to say anything to close out? Okay. All right. And then the last question, and I'll let you go. In today's world and in your life, what are one or two things that give you hope, that maybe inspire you?
I think one of the things that gives me hope is my mom. I love that I'm able to look at her every single day, know her story, and know that everything's going to be okay, because she's still so beautiful. She's still very gracious. She's still very giving and loving. And she continues to blossom, so she gives me hope. And
that's a wonderful gift.
It's a wonderful gift.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
my dad is still there too, so he gives me hope every day. And then being able to wake up and think about all of the wonderful people that are in my life. And I can go on and on, but I am surrounded by beautiful people. Yeah, that invest in me and deal with my mess and push me.
Right.
So I would say those are the things that people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having connections that matter.
Having connections that matter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That you can go a little bit deep with. So which is what MVP is about also. So,
yes.
All right. Well, I will let you go. So I'm getting my watch examined. Thank you.
Hey, it says 11, my favorite number. That's awesome.
Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So we'll do, so thank you again, Brandy and I closing out here at the old Team Manu training facility. So, and I guess the Atlanta MVP is moving back to this location?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
For a little bit. We're with Kittle.
Yeah.
And they're moving. And I think we'll be here for a couple months and then go back to
okay.
Kittle. Yeah.
A little bit more central location. Is
yes,
that? Yeah.
I think
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, so Bruce Kittle signing off here. So 3, 2, 1, cut! Excellent. All
right, guys. There's our show today, and I hope it was everything I said it would be. Really enjoyed the time with George, so thanks to George for taking that time and just conversations about the games and their life and activities within the NFL and some of the things going on. Special thanks then to Mark for that conversation, and really appreciate his insights about leadership and how the world can come together and what it looks like to build kind of unity in this, and really tied it into my visit to the King Center and the Martin Luther King National Park. So really interesting conversation there. And then lastly, thanks to Brandy and hosting us at the Team Manu gym, where she has trained for a long time and knows people and everything. And so it was great to have that conversation with her about living life through your body and what it meant to be in the ring and finding freedom in fighting. So anyway, hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for tuning in. As always, if you can, give us a little review, please, and plug us a little bit on all that kind of stuff, and social media there, hit us up, and whatever you need, we're there for you. So anyway, we're going for it. And again, rooting for the old Niners. And so let's go. All right. Take care. Have a super great week. Thank you.